The rain has been falling for hours, or maybe forever. You can't quite tell anymore. It isn't just rain in the sky tonight. It's something heavier, something soaked in silence and ash. The kind of weather that doesn't just fall, it presses. It presses against the metal hull of the vehicle, against the roof of your thoughts, against the thin, breath-warmed glass beside your cheek. You sit with your head near the window, where a droplet races another down a winding path, streaking the outside world into vague impressions of green and black and blur. The inside of the transport is cold, not in temperature, but in posture. Everyone here is quiet, not resting, not speaking, just present, just breathing in unison, like a hive. The hum of the road beneath the tires vibrates through the soles of your boots and into your calves, anchoring you to the present, whether you like it or not. You were given your orders only hours ago, but time doesn't move forward in moments like this. It folds. You remember the words, but not the warmth of them. Investigate, locate, contain. They sounded official, wrapped in the sort of language that implies structure, but underneath them was nothing solid. Just the fog of a command wrapped in uncertainty. You are Rebecca Chambers, rookie medic, uniform still crisp, despite the way your stomach coils with unease. This isn't how you imagined your first deployment. You imagined something clearer. The window rattles slightly. You look up. Trees pass like ghosts, dark arms clawing at the air, wet leaves glinting with silver under the transport's lights. You're not even sure where exactly you're going. Somewhere in the Arklay Mountains. Somewhere not meant to be found unless you're already in trouble. The mission was vague. A court-martialed convict escaped, possibly armed, dangerous. But the air has been thick with the kind of quiet that tells you no one believes that's the real reason you're here. There's something else in the static. Someone in the front murmurs something into a radio. The reply is only static. No one speaks louder. The transport feels suddenly smaller. You shift in your seat, hands resting on your knees, gloved fingers flexing once, just to feel that you're still inside your own skin. You can smell damp wool from the uniform beside you, gun oil, rain breath, the scent of anticipation trying to act like discipline. Outside, the road curves and you feel your body lean with it. The horizon is gone now, consumed by hills, trees, and the bruised underside of the storm. There's a moment where the lightning flickers, briefly illuminating a long skeletal silhouette standing atop a rock ledge above the trees. Not quite a shape, not quite a figure, but something that makes your spine whisper to itself. And then the thunder arrives, not as a crash, but as a rumble that vibrates through your collarbone. You blink, and the figure is gone. You are still trying to decide whether you saw anything at all when the brakes scream beneath your feet. A jolt, not violent but sharp, sends a ripple through the entire cabin. Hands reach for bars. Eyes snap toward windows. Something's blocking the road. A body, then another. Then the shape of a vehicle. You squint through the wet glass, watching shapes that do not move as they should. They are hunched, slick, almost steaming against the cold. And then, too fast to process, the glass shatters and everything collapses into sound. Your ears ring. The vehicle tilts. A voice shouts. A door slams. Someone pulls you by the arm and your boots hit mud. Rain slaps your cheeks and shoulders like hands trying to wake you from something too deep to name. The rest of the team is spreading out, guns drawn, eyes darting into the trees. The rain is louder now, because you're in it. You can't tell if it's getting heavier or if it just feels that way, now that you're standing in it, small and alert and drenched. Your commanding officer motions toward something ahead, a train, half obscured by branches and mist, sitting oddly on the tracks, its windows glowing dimly like dying embers. You can't hear its engine. No rumble, no whistle, just stillness. It looks abandoned and yet not. You're told to approach, alone. Recon, fast in, fast out. You hesitate only for a second, then your feet move. They crunch over wet gravel and cracked branches, and the train grows larger with every step. The first step onto the train is hesitant, not because the platform is slippery, but because something resists you, not physically, emotionally, like the very air inside pushes back, as if the train remembers something that your presence threatens to repeat. But your hand touches the rail. Your other hand rests near your weapon, not out of readiness, but out of routine. The door opens with a sigh, not an electric slide. A sigh like something breathing its last. Inside, the air is warm and wrong, not rotting, not clean, just stale in a way that suggests too many stories left unfinished. You step through velvet carpet that squishes beneath your boots. The hallway stretches in both directions. Lighting flickers softly, not broken, just indecisive. For a moment, you think you hear music, faint from deeper in the train, piano, or something like it, but it vanishes as soon as you notice it. You pass empty tables, half-drunk wine glasses, a napkin still folded into a triangle, a chair askew. Each detail feels arranged, but not by human hands. More like the train itself posed these remnants, trying to remember how it once hosted life. A trail of something dark streaks along the wall, too smudged to confirm but too thick to ignore. You don't follow it. Not yet. There's movement, not in front of you, above you. A creak, a groan, a slow shift in the ceiling panels. You feel your breath catch. Not in fear, not exactly, but in recognition. This is not a place for answers. This is a place for memory, for buried things. You take another step, and the air tightens. You think of your orders, of the convict, of what you were told to look for. But the walls don't care about your reasons. They care only that you've entered. Ahead, a door clicks. Not loudly, more like the sound of teeth behind a smile. You pause. Rain still patters against the windows, but the rhythm has changed. It's no longer random. It's conversational. Almost as if the train is asking you something, and you do not yet know how to answer. You step through. Another car. This one lined with seats, their upholstery damp with mildew and ghost weight. Every cushion seems to sag as if recently vacated. Every seatbelt hangs like a tongue. You walk slowly. Your breath fogs slightly in the dim. You are beginning to feel that you are not the first to walk this path, and you are certain you will not be the last. Somewhere toward the rear of the train, you hear the echo of a chain, not dragging, just shifting once, then silence. The air shifts, a warm current, not wind, breath. Your fingers touch a door handle. It's cold, too cold for the room it belongs to. And for a long moment, you don't open it. You simply stand there, hand resting gently, as if listening through your skin. On the other side of this door is something you are not prepared for. But then, perhaps you were never meant to be prepared. Perhaps the only way to survive this place is to enter it wrong and keep walking anyway. You open the door, and something, somewhere, begins to remember you. A drip of water from the ceiling lands on the back of your neck. The light overhead hums once, and then goes still. The door closes behind you, not with a slam, but a whisper. The kind of soft mechanical sigh that seems to exhale not just air, but memory. You are alone again. Or at least you tell yourself that as you let your hand drift away from the metal handle and down to your side. The hallway you've entered is narrower than the last, darker too, the lights blinking in a pattern you don't recognize. The floor rocks beneath your feet, gently at first, like the breath of something sleeping underneath, but then with more insistence, more rhythm, more weight. You feel it before you hear it. The train is moving. Again. Still. You didn't feel it start. You didn't hear the engine cough back to life. No voice over a speaker, no conductor, no hum of ignition. Just this quiet, creeping realization that the walls around you are in motion, and you are now part of something that isn't waiting for permission to go. You plant your feet wider, not out of fear, but to steady yourself against the pull of something older than fear. The kind of slow, surreal dread that settles beneath the ribs and spreads like ink. There is a window to your left. You press your hand to it, and the cold greets your skin like an old friend who doesn't remember your name. Outside, the world slides past. Blurred trees, fog that clings low to the tracks, the suggestion of shapes moving through the gray, or perhaps just reflections cast by your own presence. The glass is slightly smeared, as though someone stood here before you, touching it the same way, trying to reach out through a layer of silence and surface tension. You wonder if they ever got off the train. The corridor creaks as you move. The sound is small but constant, a breath caught in the throat of the structure itself. You walk slowly, letting each step land with purpose, not speed. Your boots thud against the carpet with the softened percussion of damp cloth and hollow echoes. The light above your head flickers in protest. The bulb buzzes, not consistently, but in sharp, nervous bursts, like it's struggling to remember how to glow. Your eyes adjust to a door at the far end, ornate wood, stained by years of heat and breath and disuse. Its brass handle is dulled from too many touches. There's something on the door, not a mark, not a symbol, but the residue of something that lingered too long. You reach for it anyway. The room on the other side opens like a thought you tried not to think. It's a lounge car, you think, or once was. Plush seats draped in dust, tablecloths with the memory of wine stains, a chandelier that trembles slightly with the movement of the train. There is a fire here, or what remains of one. An old gaslight burns behind a panel, flickering like it's trying to mimic warmth, not generate it. The smell is thick, not rot exactly, but something adjacent, like velvet left wet in the dark. A piano rests in the corner, lid closed, keys forgotten. You can almost hear a note escape from it, unplayed. There's someone here. You don't see him right away. He is a shadow at first. Tall, hunched slightly near the far wall, posture loose like someone who's been waiting too long to stand straight. He wears a coat, a strange expression. His eyes meet yours, and something about the moment folds in on itself. Recognition without familiarity. He is not startled. Neither are you. He speaks, not loudly, not unkindly. The sound of his voice is a ripple across the surface of something much deeper. His name is Billy. You know this not because he tells you, but because the space around him seems to say it. A name already spoken by the train, repeated in the pipes, murmured in the cables. You do not trust him, but you do not walk away. The two of you regard each other in the way two stranded souls often do, not as threats, but as mirrors. There's something in his eyes that speaks of roads traveled badly, something in yours that reflects the doubt of being here at all. You say something. He says something else. The words are inconsequential. What matters is that they fall into the air and do not vanish. You continue on. He does not follow. Not yet. The next car smells like water that never dried. Damp leather. Metal warmed and cooled too many times. You pass by sleeping compartments. Doors slightly ajar. Beds still made. Sheets folded neatly, like a hotel abandoned mid-season. One door swings gently on its hinges, moved by the breath of the train. Inside, the bed is rumpled. A suitcase lies open on the floor. A pair of glasses on the table, one lens cracked. A page of a letter, half folded, words smudged. The pen rests on the edge as if someone meant to come back for it. You do not touch it. You've learned not to touch the past while it's still warm. A shadow passes behind you. Or maybe it was a trick of the lights. You move forward again, passing through the narrow corridors like blood through a vein, directed, inevitable. There is sound now, not from the engine, but from deeper still. A low murmur, like metal groaning under emotional weight. You reach the kitchen car. The smell hits you first, not entirely unpleasant, like something once meant to be a meal, then forgotten, then remembered only too late. Pots hang above the prep station. One still swings, slightly, as if a hand recently passed. The sink drips, once every 5 seconds. A rhythm that feels personal. You hear breathing, not yours, not Billy's, something heavier, closer to the ground. And then, movement, slow, wet, directionless. You do not see it, not clearly, but you feel it. The space thickens around you, the air pressed into the shape of something no longer human. It slithers, it lurches, it mourns, not with sound, but with presence. You back away, not in panic, in reverence. This is not a monster. It is a remnant, a symptom of the story carved too deeply into this place. You shut the door gently. It does not resist. You find yourself thinking about the beginning again, about the orders, about the rain. You wonder who wrote them. You wonder if they knew the train would move. The sound of a bell echoes faintly through the corridors. Not mechanical, not scheduled. It tolls like memory. You follow it. Billy finds you again. This time his voice is quieter. There's less weight in his stance. You speak, not in accusation, not in alliance, just in shared bewilderment. For a moment, you are not two people on a haunted train. You are two stories that have brushed against each other like pages caught in the same draft. You agree to move forward, together, not because of trust, but because the path is now too wide to walk alone. You open another door, and the wind howls inside. It shouldn't be able to. You're on a train. But the forest has somehow climbed inside, roots curled around the lights, leaves scattered on the carpet. The train is no longer just a machine. It's a vessel, carrying more than people, more than cargo. It carries wounds, secrets, misremembered endings. And you are now a part of it. Billy leads now. You follow quietly. The doors ahead pulse slightly, like lungs. The motion of the train has grown steadier, heavier. You feel it in your spine now. The way forward tugs at you like a forgotten promise. You don't know where it leads. But it doesn't matter, because the train is moving, even when it shouldn't. A lone spoon rests on the floor behind you, rocking gently with the rhythm of the tracks. It rings once, and then is still. The spoon has stopped ringing. That small sound, so clear just moments ago, has been swallowed by the deeper hush of the corridor ahead. A hush that doesn't feel like silence, but like breath held too long. You step forward, and the floor shifts again beneath you, but not with the rhythmic certainty of the train in motion. This is something else. A tremble that comes not from the tracks, but from within the walls. As if the train itself is nervous, as if it remembers something you haven't yet seen. The air here is different. It carries a strange weight, not heavy, but suspended, like the seconds before a storm that never arrives. You pass another window, and though your eyes instinctively search for the outside world, you're not entirely sure you find it. The trees are there, yes, but they no longer move past with predictable speed. They feel too still, too posed, as if the scenery has become a backdrop, a suggestion of normalcy pinned against the impossible. You look away. You let your fingers brush the wall, tracing the thin seam of a panel not meant to open. The surface faintly warm beneath your touch, like skin flushed with memory. A doorway yawns open ahead, not from motion, not from touch, but from something subtler. A breeze that shouldn't exist. It carries no chill, no heat, only suggestion. Inside, the car is dim, but not unlit. Lamps glow amber on either side of the aisle, casting long, reluctant shadows across upholstered seats that haven't been sat in for too long. Dust hangs in the air in strands, not particles, not quite web, not quite smoke. Just time, made visible, and then you see them. Passengers. At first they do not move. They might not even be real. Their bodies are stiff, clothes worn smooth with age and damp. A man in a crumpled suit slumps against the window, his mouth slightly open, his hand clutching nothing. A woman nearby sits upright, hands folded neatly in her lap, though her skin has turned the color of river clay. Another further down leans at an angle no neck should allow. Their eyes are open. Their breath is not. They do not see you, not at first, but you see them, and something in the room recognizes you. You do not run. There's no need. Their presence does not press toward you with threat, but with inertia. They do not belong here, and yet here they remain, fixed in place like forgotten luggage. The man's hand twitches, just once. You do not move, not yet. Billy's voice reaches you again, faint, from the corridor behind. A question you do not answer. Instead, you watch the passengers. One by one, they begin to shift. Not waking, not rising, just remembering movement, as if muscle and tendon are attempting to recall the choreography of life. Their motions are small, jaw slackening, fingers curling, the wet drag of a shoe against the floor. They aren't hostile, not now, but they are not sleeping either. You step past them slowly, careful not to disturb the thin membrane of stillness that clings to their presence. Each breath you take feels borrowed, like stepping into someone else's dream. The man by the window tilts his head slightly, like a marionette with a cut string. His eyes never leave the horizon, though the horizon no longer moves. You reach the far end of the car and press your hand to the door, but it doesn't open. Not immediately. You look back. They're still seated, watching nothing, waiting for something. Or someone. The lock clicks. The next car is darker, colder. The carpet is damp here, the pattern beneath your feet lost beneath the slow, greedy stain of water and time. You step around a suitcase left half open, its contents spilled. A velvet glove, a silver comb. A photograph so faded it might be nothing at all. You do not pick it up. You do not need to know their name. You already feel it. The imprint of someone long gone, still lingering in the fabric of the seat. Billy joins you again. His steps are heavier now, slower. Even he feels it, the press of memory on this place. He doesn't speak. He just stands near you, close enough to hear your breath. Close enough that the silence doesn't have to stretch so far. A sound from behind makes you turn. The door you came through has closed again, but you didn't hear it move. You try not to look at the seats as you pass them, but it's impossible not to. They carry weight, not the weight of bodies, but of stories left mid-sentence. A child's toy rolls slightly across the aisle, though there is no motion to explain it. A teacup rests upside down on an armrest, still cradling a ring of dried crimson at its base. The next room opens wide. It was once a dining car, elegant, even in its decay. Tables set with cracked porcelain, knives and forks resting just where hands left them. A menu card still stands, damp at the corners. The ink bled into a language only ghosts understand. The chandeliers above swing softly, not with the movement of the train, but with something else. Like breath, like someone sighing from above. There are more passengers here, but these do not sit. They stand, awkwardly, their bodies bent, their clothes stiff. One leans against a pillar, head drooping to the side. Another grips the back of a chair so tightly his fingers have split. You know they are not alive. You know they have not been for some time. But their posture suggests intent, a kind of echoing desire, the memory of purpose without the motor to fulfill it. And then one turns, not sharply, not like a threat, just slowly, A rotation of the shoulders, a tilt of the head. The eyes, clouded and sunken, find you, not with hunger, but with longing, as if they want to be seen, to be remembered, to be part of the world again, if only by reflection. You do not run, you wait. Another turns. A woman this time. Her hair still pinned back, though most of it has fallen. Her mouth opens, as if to speak, but there is only the dry rustle of wind through bone. Billy places a hand on your arm, not hard, not hurried, just enough to say, "We should go." And so you do. The next hallway is narrow again, the walls tight with age and pressure. A door rattles as you pass, though you do not touch it. Something behind it wants out, or wants in. It's hard to tell. You move on. In one compartment you pause. A man sits at a table unmoving, a fork halfway to his lips. His eyes are wide, and in them the frozen glint of a final thought. He has not decomposed like the others. His skin is pale, yes, but intact. His clothes are neat. There is no blood, only stillness. He might have died of fright, or perhaps of hope. You wonder who he waited for. The lights flicker again. This time, not just above, but around you. The walls hum, the windows darken. You feel the train pulling you forward, not just through space, but through something deeper, like being drawn into the past. Not your past, but someone's. And then you hear them. Voices. Not clear, not close, just murmurs. The kind you hear through walls, through dreams. A woman laughing, a man asking a question, the clink of glass, the scraping of a chair. Not real, not now, but once. Billy hears it too. He looks at you, and for the first time, he seems unsure. You continue. You pass through cars now, like drifting through someone else's memories, one filled with suitcases, one with cages, one with coats hanging neatly in rows, still smelling faintly of perfume. Each space feels less like a train and more like a museum, a mausoleum. The passengers do not chase you, but their presence wraps around you all the same. You carry them now, in the corners of your eyes, in the weight of your breath. At last you reach a door that looks newer, stronger. It resists you for a moment, then opens. You step into quiet, real quiet. Not the silence of death, but the kind that comes before something begins. The passengers are behind you now, but not forgotten. They remain seated, or standing, or slumped. They remain, because the train is still moving. And they are still here, even if they shouldn't be. A thin line of condensation slips down the inside of the nearest window, trailing through the dust like a finger tracing a forgotten name. The sound of the storm has dulled, not because it has passed, but because the walls have thickened. You are somewhere deeper now, not in geography, but in atmosphere. The train groans as it moves, still impossibly alive, and you move with it, not with urgency, but with resignation. The air tastes like metal, like the inside of a spent bullet. Somewhere nearby, something clicks. Not a threat, not yet. Just a reminder that the world is wound tight with decisions you didn't make. The man is there, standing in the flickering corridor, like a ghost pretending to be flesh. His posture isn't one of violence, but one of permanence. Someone who has learned to carry his own weight without shifting it to others. His arms are free, but you notice the faint bruising at the wrists, the way his stance still assumes the drag of iron. Billy Coen. A name delivered to you like a warning, like a file left open on the wrong desk. A murderer, a fugitive, a threat. But standing here, in this place where the rules have come apart like wet paper, those words don't feel quite as sharp. He watches you with the tired eyes of someone who has stopped trying to convince anyone of anything. You ask him nothing. You want to. But the words stick in your throat like static. Trust, in places like this, isn't a door you walk through. It's a ledge you lean toward, hoping the wind is kind. He says something, not loud, not soft, just enough to tether the moment. You can't remember the words, only the tone, the cadence, not fear, not apology, just survival dressed as casual. And for a breath or two, you let yourself exist beside him. Not with him, just beside. The train shifts beneath you both, a low mechanical groan like something ancient remembering how to breathe. And in that movement, you see it. The slight tension in his jaw, the way his fingers curl slightly inward as if bracing for a chain that no longer exists. He has done things. You've done things. But here, guilt doesn't feel like evidence. It feels like air. Everyone breathes it, even if they pretend not to. You move forward together, not in tandem, but in parallel. Two ghosts haunting the same stretch of metal and decay. The corridor gives way to a room that used to mean something. A lounge, perhaps, or a place for first-class passengers to forget the world. Now it's draped in silence and the broken patterns of overturned furniture. A clock ticks above the fireplace, but you're not sure if it's moving or simply remembering what movement used to feel like. He steps ahead, his boots quiet on the red-stained carpet. You watch the shape of him in the gloom, the outline of strength, the residue of regret. There's a photograph on a table, cracked down the middle. A family, or the idea of one. He doesn't look at it, but something in his face changes. A flicker. A soft pulling inward, like memory brushing past skin. The power flickers again, that familiar stutter of light trying to keep its eyes open. Shadows stretch in the corners, and for a moment they almost look like people. You don't flinch. Neither does he. The dead are no longer strangers here. They are part of the decor. A door creaks open, not from your hand, not from his. Just from time. Just from pressure. The room beyond smells of something sweet gone sour, like fruit forgotten in a drawer, like perfume on a letter you never sent. He steps in first this time. There's no choreography, just shared momentum. Inside there's a journal, torn pages, scrawled ink, a name that might be his, or not. He glances at it but doesn't reach for it. You do. The paper is soft at the edges, damp where memory has soaked through. It tells a story you already knew, but pretended you didn't. A mission gone wrong. A convoy ambushed. Decisions made in heat and noise and silence. He watches you read, but not with fear. With resignation. The kind that people wear when they've already been judged. And the sentence was forgetting. You meet his eyes, just briefly. He says nothing. You nod, not in agreement, but in acknowledgement. Like a priest to a sinner, or maybe the other way around. Further in, the walls shift, not literally, but emotionally. This part of the train is colder, not in temperature, in intent. You pass through what used to be a kitchen, now smeared with rust and silence. A cleaver sits on a cutting board, untouched. The blood beside it is too old to speak, but too fresh to ignore. He pauses here, not for the weapon, but for the smell. You can tell. It reminds him of something. A campfire. A night before the noise. Before the chains. Before the names started meaning less than the numbers. He closes his eyes, just for a moment, and then walks on. You find a passenger manifest nailed to the wall with a fork. It lists names in block letters, half crossed out, the rest circled in red. His name isn't on it. Yours isn't either. But that doesn't mean you don't belong here. Sometimes, the ones who matter most are the ones no one records. In a small compartment near the back, the lights don't work at all. Only the rhythmic shudder of the train guides you. The smell here is different. Antiseptic, almost. You feel it before you see it. A gurney, a shattered vial, a note left behind by someone who expected to come back. He stops you here, says something short, just enough to remind you he's not a shadow. Not yet. You sit for a moment, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the silence asks you to. He doesn't sit. He leans against the frame, arms crossed like a man who's lost his watch but still knows what time feels like. You ask him, finally, if he did it. The thing in the file. The thing with the bodies. He doesn't answer. Not with words, just with a look that feels like snowfall on an empty road. Quiet, endless, unyielding. The train groans again. Somewhere far ahead, a light dies. Somewhere behind, something shifts. He glances once, then straightens. There's no panic, no plan, just motion. He offers a hand, not to help, but to continue. You take it. Not because you trust him, but because sometimes the only way out of a nightmare is to share it. And as you step forward, side by side, into another flickering corridor, the air around you changes. Not warmer, not safer, just closer. The silence walks with you now, soft as breath, heavy as guilt. And far behind you, a pair of broken handcuffs lie in the dust, cooling slowly, like regret. The corridor recedes behind you, like a sentence unfinished, swallowed by the hum of steel and time. Footsteps echo in that strange, uneven way they do on old trains. One part rhythm, one part hesitation. As if the floor isn't entirely sure you belong here. You move through the narrow passage slowly, the metal walls pressing in with a quiet insistence, as if asking you not to look too hard. Ahead, a door waits. Not locked, just expectant. It breathes you in the way all thresholds do, with a hush that feels like memory stirred from sleep. The handle is cool beneath your hand, a texture of wear and fingerprints not your own. You press it down. The door opens not with a creak, but a sigh, long and low and almost wet. What lies beyond is not surprise. Not anymore. Just another room trying very hard to remember what it was before the world folded in on itself. The dining car stretches out before you like an abandoned opera set, bathed in fractured moonlight and the low amber glow of bulbs that weren't built to last this long. Tables are dressed in cloth, once white, now the color of old bone. Silverware glints like teeth. The chairs stand askew, some tipped over, some still perfectly placed, as if the people who sat in them had simply vanished mid-toast. A bottle of wine rests at the edge of a side table, unopened, its label peeling like dry skin. A corkscrew lies beside it, pointed like a finger, forgotten in the pause between gesture and use. You step forward slowly, your boots brushing against the thin dust on the carpet, the kind that only forms when breath has long since left a space. The chandeliers overhead sway gently with the rhythm of the train, casting long, dancing shadows across polished wood and cold steel. Each creak of their movement feels deliberate, like a whisper passed from fixture to fixture. A conversation never meant for you. There is blood here. You don't see it at first. The lighting is too soft, too kind. But you smell it. A sweetness, heavy and metallic, like fruit gone wrong. It lingers just above the scent of mildew and velvet rot. Then your eyes adjust and it appears, not a splash, not a scene, but a trail. Delicate, precise. A thread of red winding between the tables, across the aisle, under the chair legs. A private path laid by someone who was still polite enough to bleed in straight lines. Your gaze drifts to the far end of the car. There, in the corner, beside a window that's been spiderwebbed by something with fingers or fists, lies a conductor's cap, neatly placed. Too neatly, as if someone had removed it with care and laid it down with intent. Just beside it, the floor is wet. Not puddled, not smeared, just wet. Thickly, quietly, in a way that suggests warmth long gone but not yet cold. You kneel beside it, instinct pulling your hand close, not to touch, but to feel. The air here is warmer, not in temperature, in weight. As if something happened recently, as if the room is still recovering from it. You stay there for a breath, maybe two, letting the silence settle, letting it decide what it wants you to know. From somewhere above, there's a sound, a groan. Not mechanical, not human, just a sound, a noise of burden, of something stretched too far for too long. The chandeliers shift again, their chains singing gently. The whole car seems to lean left for a moment, then correct itself. And you wonder, not for the first time, if the train is still on its tracks. If the tracks ever existed at all. You rise slowly, your eyes catching the glint of something on the nearest table. A spoon, impossibly clean, resting on a saucer stained with old coffee. You stare at it for a long moment, wondering who drank there, what they wore, whether their voice cracked when they asked for sugar. You try to picture them, but all that comes is the sound of cutlery clinking. Soft, repetitive, like distant rain tapping on glass. Billy moves somewhere behind you. You don't turn to look. You don't need to. His presence is a shape in the room now, part of its furniture, as familiar as the shadow of your own steps. He says nothing. There is nothing to say. Not here. Not in this room that still tastes of silver and something feral. You continue forward, hand brushing against the back of each chair as you pass. The velvet cushions are stiff, crusted with dust and time. One of them is torn, the stuffing spilling out like soft organs. You don't flinch. The image is too gentle to be gruesome. Just another thing unraveling quietly, with no one left to stitch it back together. There is a menu near the center table, folded in half, spotted with age. You pick it up without thinking. It opens reluctantly. Inside, the words are faded. French names, careful cursive, an elegance that feels cruel now. Coq au vin, escargots, a wine list with vintages too expensive for their own survival. You hold it for a while, trying to decide if hunger is still something people feel in places like this. Then you let it go. It flutters gently to the floor, landing like a paper bird with broken wings. A low hum begins to rise, not from the lights, not from the train, from somewhere beneath your feet, a vibration you can feel in your knees, in your teeth. It's not threatening, just present, like the purr of a sleeping animal that might wake up if you move too quickly. You stay still. You let the room breathe. You notice now that the windows are covered in condensation. On the outside, as if the cold is pressing in, trying to find a way through. Shapes blur there, branches, rain, maybe more. They smear against the glass like fingerprints dragged through fog. You don't look too closely. You've learned not to look too closely at things that move behind glass. Toward the rear of the dining car, a curtain sways gently. It shouldn't. There's no breeze, no draft. Just the slow, sleepy rhythm of the train. But the curtain sways. You don't approach it. Not right away. You let it dance for a while. Let it tell its story in folds and shadows. Only when it begins to settle do you draw near, each step measured, each breath held like a prayer. Behind it, there's a service alcove. Small, sterile, once pristine, now scattered. Plates stacked high, some chipped, some clean. A tray of silver cutlery lies overturned on the floor, the forks splayed like broken hands. You step carefully around them. Something crunches beneath your heel. A teacup, already fractured before you arrived. It doesn't break again. Just gives way with a sound like tired porcelain. There's a note on the counter. A quick scrawl, jagged and desperate. I heard them in the vents. That's all. No signature, no explanation. Just an unfinished sentence that sounds far too familiar. You fold it quietly and slide it into your pocket, though you don't know why. Some pieces of memory are too small to leave behind. From the kitchen beyond, a pot clatters to the floor. Not from your movement, not from Billy's, just on its own. A single clang that rings out too loud, too sharp, like a scream stifled halfway. You pause, not in fear, but in deference. The room has spoken, and now it listens. You back away slowly, past the tables, past the wine, past the memories etched into each chair leg and dented plate. The dining car has given you what it wanted to. A glimpse, a whisper. A moment suspended in silver and blood, As you reach the far end and your hand returns to another door, cold, silent, waiting, you glance back one last time. The chandelier sways once more, just a little, like something breathing, like something dreaming of when it was alive. And somewhere behind you, a spoon settles on its saucer as if exhaling. The velvet of the dining car still clings faintly to your clothes, its ghost pressed into the fabric like a scent you didn't notice until it was far too late to remove. You carry it with you as you move. That murmur of elegance decayed, of blood soaked quietly into carpeting that once bore polished shoes and expensive silence. Now the hush is different. Now the hush listens. The corridor narrows. Not physically. No, the walls remain the same distance apart. But something in your chest makes the air feel tighter, like memory taking up too much space. There's a flicker in the lights overhead, and though you don't stop walking, you notice it only happens when you breathe. It pauses when you hold your breath. You try it again. Flicker. Stillness. Flicker. Stillness. The train seems to sync with your rhythm, as if it too is struggling to remain steady in the storm. And there is a storm. You forgot that for a moment, but the reminder arrives now, not with thunder, but with the slow roll of pressure against glass. It starts as a vibration, then a hum, then a deep and distant moan from the other side of the walls. Rain smears itself across the window panes with the slow, deliberate movement of something alive. Each drop trails behind the next, dragging light with it. Headlamps ahead, or perhaps behind, create brief halos that warp as they slide across the glass. The light is warm. The storm is not. The hallway curves, and your steps begin to echo. Not loudly, but with that soft, wet-padded hush that comes when shoes are too worn to make demands. One step, two. Pause. One step, two. You're not alone. Not entirely. But you haven't been for some time. Companionship, like the lights above, flickers. He is behind you, or beside you, or maybe in another car entirely. You don't call out to confirm. There's something fragile about the stillness here. A name would break it. The window to your left groans. You turn your head without thinking, and for a moment, you don't see anything beyond the glass. Not trees, not rain, not the faint red smudge of the emergency lights bouncing off wet metal. You see your own face, but not as it is now. There's something wrong in the reflection. A warping. Not horror, but suggestion. Your eyes hold too much shadow, and your mouth, you hadn't realized you were frowning. Or is it a smile? The window doesn't hold still long enough to decide. Something touches the pane from the outside. Not a hand. Not quite. Just pressure. A ripple as if the glass had gone soft for a moment and was considering becoming water. You don't breathe. The ripple fades, but your ribs ache with how tightly your lungs hold the air. You keep moving, not out of bravery, but out of habit. The hallway begins to widen again, a carriage designed for passengers with more money than urgency. Curtains sway gently, though the windows are sealed. You remember walking through cars like this once, a long time ago, or maybe in a film, or maybe in a dream that borrowed someone else's memory. Soft cushions, white gloves, silver carts, and half-spoken apologies. Now those carts are tipped, and the gloves are gone, and the silver is tarnished, not with age, but with something you won't name. A window ahead is cracked. You hear it before you see it. The sound is too high. Not like breaking, but like something holding on just a little too long. You approach slowly. There's something pressed against the glass. Not a face, not clearly. Just the suggestion of one, like someone exhaling against your spine in the dark. Your skin crawls before your mind catches up. When you blink, it's gone. But the breath on the glass remains, fogging in a shape that doesn't match your own. You press forward. The air begins to change. You don't notice it all at once. It's not dramatic, just a slow thickening, a heaviness, like the smell of water that isn't clean. The lights dim again, not because the train is failing, but because the storm outside has grown bold. Lightning does not strike. It circles. It prowls around the cars, casting sharp silhouettes across the walls. For a moment, you see something move at the end of the hall. You don't stop walking. The thing does not move again. That makes it worse. The floor beneath you trembles, not from motion, from memory. You know this step. You've taken it before. Somewhere in this car you saw someone fall. Not today. Not in this timeline. But the echo is here, embedded in the metal. You pause beside the window that screamed. It doesn't now, but it remembers. There's a crack that curls like a scar, spidering outward from a point just below your eye level. Something once struck here, hard enough to want through, but not hard enough to break in. The train held. The glass did not scream, but it should have. Your fingers hover above the crack. You do not touch it. The glass doesn't want to be touched. You understand that now. Some things don't break because they're strong. They break because they were never asked whether they wanted to hold in the first place. Ahead, a door waits. Not open, not closed, just waiting. The handle is worn. The wood is dark with age, or maybe with something else. You step forward and press your hand to the panel, and the train exhales around you. Not a gust. Just a hush. A brief lull, like a breath held. The door opens. Inside, everything smells like metal. The room is small, a chamber between cars. The ceiling drips faintly from a leak you can't see. It taps out a rhythm against a bench along the wall. The drip is slow, deliberate. You sit. Not because you're tired, but because the train seems to ask it of you. The window across from you is fogged. No shape, no face. Just condensation sliding slowly, like a finger tracing forgotten letters across a surface too cold to care. You close your eyes for a moment. Just one. The train continues to move. You feel it in your teeth, in your jaw. The vibration lives there now, tucked deep into your molars like regret. You don't remember what you ate last, or when. The hunger is dull. It sits beside you, not gnawing, just present. Outside, something shifts. The storm has changed direction, or maybe the train has. Either way, the rain comes from a new angle now, scraping across the glass like fingernails. Not threatening, just impatient, as if the sky itself is tired of being ignored. You rise, not all at once, slowly, like a marionette being reminded it has strings. The train rocks, and for a moment your balance falters, not because you stumble, but because the gravity here is different. The storm has teeth. You're not sure if it's biting down or just bearing them. The hallway resumes, stretching into shadows and suggestions. Another window ahead, this one broken for real. Shards cling like teeth around its frame. Wind breathes through, sharp and metallic. There is something tangled in the curtains beside it. You do not look directly at it. Not yet. The train hums beneath your feet. It is not a song. It is not kind. But it is steady. And in this place, steadiness is sacred. You move on. Past the broken window, past the breathless bench, past the shadow that didn't move. You continue, and behind you, the window that cracked but didn't scream. Finally does. A thin, brittle wail, like a violin string snapping under frost. You don't turn back. Some sounds are not meant to be heard twice. You keep walking, and the hallway swallows the sound behind you like a secret it never wanted to keep. The sound behind you has faded, but it left its shape behind. A faint crack still caught in the curve of your spine, a memory lodged just beneath the skin. You do not look back. Looking would only make it louder. Instead, your hand grazes the edge of the next doorway, a frame warped by time and heat, and maybe something else, something less visible, more chemical, more cruel. The train groans again, But this time the sound is not mechanical. It is more like breath. Like something inside the walls is remembering how to exhale. This car is darker than the last. Not pitch black. No, this darkness is polite. Lingering. Muted. The lights above hum with the uncertainty of bulbs that were once reassured by science, and are now left only with questions. You step inside slowly, and the first thing you notice is the absence of windows. The world outside, the rain, the trees, the ache of distance, is gone now. The space is sealed. Intentionally. Like a room that knew too much about the things it was meant to contain. It was once a passenger car. That truth still hangs here, faint as perfume on old velvet. You can see it in the curve of the walls, the placement of lights meant to flatter rather than reveal. But things have been added. Not recently. Not neatly. Desks have been shoved against walls. Cabinets bolted where benches used to be. Equipment sits hunched like sleeping animals, plugged into sockets that were never meant to carry this kind of hum. Wires snake across the floor in tangles, like thoughts that never found resolution. The carpet is wrong, not removed but covered, as if the past was not erased, only muffled. You pass a table with metal clamps at the edges, not broken, but bored. Their mouths hang open, waiting. Something beneath them stains the surface. Not blood, but something older, something with a color that once meant life and now means only process. A clipboard lies nearby, but the paper is soaked, the ink weeping sideways. You do not try to read it. Some things are clearer when left illegible. There is a sound somewhere behind one of the heavy steel cabinets. Not footsteps, just a shift, a presence, stretching. The sort of movement something makes not when it wants to be noticed, but when it has forgotten it ever wasn't. You pause, not in fear, but in agreement. Whatever is back there does not want an audience. You have no wish to be one. The air tastes like metal and mildew, the way a forgotten spoon feels in your mouth. Cold, distant, a reminder of somewhere you shouldn't have been. You breathe shallowly, not to avoid detection, but to avoid memory. The room is thick with it, and it is not your memory. That's what makes it worse. To your right, a screen flickers. A monitor, still pulsing faintly with light, like the last heartbeat of something already gone. The image is meaningless. Bars, numbers, a graph looping endlessly without purpose. But you stare anyway, because something in you still wants answers, even now. Even here. There's a smell beneath the metal and dust. Sweet, almost. Chemical. Artificial in a way that makes your mouth water for the wrong reasons, like the scent of cherries in an abandoned hospital. You trace it to a tray on the far end of the car. Small bottles line it in crooked rows. Some are cracked, others sealed, their contents half seen through cloudy glass. One has spilled. You can tell by the way the metal beneath it has turned green, and how the nearby wall has begun to peel. Not from heat, but from something deeper, something cellular. You step back, carefully. The train shifts beneath your feet, and the movement feels different now. Less like travel, more like digestion, as if the car is no longer moving across tracks, but being carried, swallowed, processed. The thought is quiet, but it lingers. Ahead, a door waits. This one is heavier, reinforced. A panel beside it blinks, not locked, not open, just thinking. You touch the pad gently, and the door opens with a hiss that feels too alive. The room beyond is colder, sharper. The lights here are brighter, but they do not comfort, they expose. The laboratory proper, or what remains of it, does not hide its purpose. Stainless steel, surgical trays, cabinets with numbers instead of labels. A diagram on the wall that shows something cellular, but wrong. Too many limbs. Not enough logic. You look away. There is a chair in the center, strapped down, buckled. The kind of chair that offers no choice. It is empty now, mostly. The impression of a body remains, in the way the straps hang, in the faint ring of dried fluid beneath the seat. You do not approach it. You don't need to. The story has already been told. The echo is still warm. A low hum rises behind you. Machinery reawakening, perhaps in response to your presence. Or perhaps it never truly slept. Screens come to life, sluggishly. One displays a series of images, not security footage, but documentation. Still frames of something changing. Skin at first, then bone, then something else entirely. The final image is simply black, not a blackout. Just absence. There is a file on the desk. This one isn't soaked, but you don't open it. Your fingers hover and then withdraw. Some knowledge does not belong in your head. Not because it is too much, but because it is too close. You step further in. Each surface here feels like it was cleaned too often, then not enough. There's a residue, not visible, but felt, like the memory of bleach or the touch of gloved hands that press too hard. You catch your reflection in a cabinet door. You don't recognize yourself at first. Not because your face has changed, but because your eyes haven't. And somehow, that's the stranger thing. There's a hallway beyond the lab, narrow and lined with lockers. One hangs open. Inside is a lab coat, still on its hanger. Untouched, pristine, except for the smell. The cloth is stiff with fear. You leave it swinging gently, the motion almost tender. The hallway ends in a hatch, the kind that seals, the kind meant to separate one world from another. You hesitate, not out of dread, but out of something softer. Regret, maybe, or longing. This car wasn't always this. Once, it moved people. Then it moved ideas. Now it moves only consequences. You open the hatch. The pressure changes. The air becomes less certain. Moisture clings to the walls. Somewhere distant, you hear the sound of water dripping, rhythmic, soft, almost kind. You step through and the door seals behind you with a finality that does not argue. You are moving forward, into something that remembers being alive, into something that used to have names for things, into a car that once was a lab but forgot, or chose to forget. You do not look back, and the scent that follows you out is not decay. It is antiseptic, and it is terrified. The train doesn't crash in a way that makes sense. There is a noise, yes, a screech that feels like it starts behind your eyes rather than outside them, a rending of metal and momentum that pulls at the spine of the world. But it isn't what you expect. No flying sparks, no cinematic lurch. It's more like a long exhale from something too tired to scream. One moment, the world is rails and direction. The next, it is sideways and soft and full of stillness that doesn't belong. You are not thrown. You are folded gently as though tucked in by gravity itself. When you blink, it isn't from shock. It's just the dust. Somewhere behind you, the carcass of the train hisses, not angrily, just persistently, like a body trying to remember how to breathe. The tunnel absorbs the sound, stretches it, turns it into something wetter, heavier, less human. Pipes above you weep from cracks. Concrete groans as it settles into itself again. And beneath it all, the whisper of fire dying. Not flames, not destruction, just warmth retreating into ash. You try to move, not because you must, but because the stillness has begun to wrap around your limbs like vines, promising that if you stay long enough, it will learn your shape. The ground is soft in a way that confuses you. It shouldn't be. You are underground, in a tunnel made for machines, and yet your hands touch dirt. Not earth, exactly. Too dry, too sterile, but something pretending to be soil. It clings to your palms with the obedience of memory. You roll onto your side and feel it against your cheek like the breath of an old house. And then the light returns. Not in brilliance, not in revelation, but in flickers. A bulb overhead, fractured, straining, pulses with the energy of something that didn't die when the train did. It buzzes faintly, like a question asked too many times. You stand, slowly. Your knees creak like doors. Your spine forgets its shape. You are vertical now, but nothing congratulates you for it. The air is thick, not with smoke, but with the echo of it, like walking into a room where someone has recently wept. The silence hums, not empty, just waiting. You begin to walk because there is no reason not to. The tunnel stretches forward like it was drawn in charcoal, smeared at the edges, lines unsure, depth suspect. There are no tracks anymore, just grooves that remember them. Behind you, somewhere in the dark, the train exhales again. You do not turn, not because you aren't afraid, but because fear has settled into something quieter. Reverence, maybe, or resignation. Ahead, the tunnel curves. Of course it does. It always curves. It never wants you to see too far. The walls are too close, not in distance, but in presence. You can feel them leaning in. Not hostile, just curious. The pipes above you twitch occasionally, like veins remembering a pulse. There is something dripping, but you cannot find the source. It might be sweat, or oil, or time. You step over a briefcase, leather, torn. Contents spilled like a confession no one meant to read. A child's shoe, too clean. A ticket stub, still warm. A pair of broken glasses, lenses cracked in such a way that the world seen through them must have looked poetic in its final moments. You do not stop to examine them. You are not here to collect, only to witness. The tunnel widens. Barely. Just enough to suggest that once maybe a larger train passed through here, or something that believed it was a train. The walls change, concrete giving way to stone, then back again, as though unsure what this place was meant to be. The floor tilts downward, subtly. Your body notices before your mind does. A slight shift in your balance, a weight behind your knees, the kind of decline that doesn't ask permission. Something flickers again. Not the light this time, something on the edge of hearing. A skitter, a whisper, a memory given breath. You pause because the sound didn't move. It didn't echo. It simply arrived, and then decided to stay. It's not close, but it is not far. It is behind a door that hasn't been installed yet. You keep walking, because that's all there is to do. And then the air changes. You don't know how you know. You just do. It's cooler, yes, but not fresher. It smells like something distilled, like chemicals trying to hide a truth. You breathe shallowly, not to protect yourself, but to preserve the quiet. Each exhale feels like an apology. The walls become smoother here, too smooth, as though sanded by hands that never stopped moving. There are windows now, or things that used to be windows, covered in grime, smeared with things that don't belong in nature. You peer through one just once and see something that isn't there. A chair, a figure, a reflection with no source. You move on. A door stands crooked on its hinge, not open, not closed, just indecisive. You nudge it gently. It swings inward with the softness of a sigh. Beyond it, another corridor. Of course, there's always another corridor. This one hums more loudly, not mechanically, biologically, the sound of a body that's grown too large for its skin. Vents breathe unevenly. A low, steady thrum pulses in the walls. You walk slowly now, as if not to disturb something asleep. And then, the scent of electricity, not ozone, something dirtier, like wires chewed by regret. There's a control panel on the wall, blinking feebly. It asks nothing of you. You pass it. Beyond it, a chamber, domed and echoing. You feel it before you see it. Warmth. Not comforting. Artificial, like stepping too close to a server bank or standing beside an old radiator in a cold room. The kind of heat that doesn't care if you're cold or not. Inside, something glows. A vat, a tank, a container that was never meant to hold peace. The liquid inside is wrong in a way that defies specifics. It isn't bubbling. It isn't still. It just moves, like thought or hunger. You don't approach it, but you don't leave either. There's a presence here, not watching, just being. And that's somehow worse. You return to the corridor. You're not sure how long you stayed. The tunnel welcomes you back like a river reabsorbing a stone. You continue downward, always downward. There's no elevation here, only descent. Footsteps feel heavier now, not from fatigue, but from absorption, like the floor is remembering you. Somewhere behind, the train is still exhaling. Somewhere ahead, something breathes slower than it should. Eventually, the tunnel narrows again, and then stops. Not in a wall, but in a door. Wide, heavy, ornate in a way that makes no sense underground. You place a hand on it. It's warm, not from the room beyond, from within the metal itself, like memory stored in iron. You don't open it yet. You just press your forehead to it for a moment. And the world hums back. You open it slowly, because everything deserves a gentle entry. The forest greets you with silence, not peace, just contrast. You are outside again, and the tunnel, like a mouth, closes behind you. The moss is soft beneath your feet. The air smells like wet bark and moonlight. Somewhere distant, a bird forgets how to sing. You breathe, not because it's safe, but because it's allowed. The wreckage of the train is behind you, mostly buried now in the black throat of the tunnel. Only the bent nose peeks out, like something trying to remember the sky. You don't look back. The trees bend slightly, not from wind, but from memory. You walk forward, because the world didn't end in that tunnel. Only something in you did, and the forest doesn't care. It only watches, and breathes, and waits. The forest swallows the sound of your steps as easily as it swallowed the wreck. Behind you, the tunnel has closed itself, not with a door, but with forgetfulness. It is no longer part of the world, just a bruise beneath it. Trees lean inward, as if huddled around some invisible fire you cannot see, muttering things in leaf and bark and breeze. The sky above is the color of old metal, and somewhere in your chest, your breath has become a rhythm that doesn't quite match your pace. You're not lost, but you've wandered beyond the place where maps tell stories. There is a clearing ahead, not open, just wider. The sort of space that isn't made, but allowed. Moss spreads like spilled velvet across stone. Roots claw upward. Branches reach low. And there, at the edge of what passes for a path, the mansion waits. It doesn't emerge. It doesn't reveal itself. It just is. As if you've walked here not for the first time, but the 50th. And every time it has been waiting. Patient. Whole. Quietly furious. Its roofline is jagged with neglect. Ivy spills down the walls like blood slowed by time. Windows blink behind grime and cracked glass, and the front door, tall, arched, absurdly polite, sits slightly ajar. Not an invitation, not even a trap. Just open, the way a mouth might fall open in sleep. You approach slowly, because slowness is all you have left. Your boots whisper against damp leaves. Your shadow stretches long behind you. The door does not creak. It parts, as if remembering how. Inside, the air is not stale. It is remembered, like stepping into someone else's memory of a room that once held music. The foyer is wide, grand in the way that rotunda ceilings and echoing marble tiles often try to be. But here, it feels muted, introspective. There's a chandelier overhead, not lit, but not dead either. Cobwebs drape from its arms like lace worn too many seasons. The walls are paneled in dark wood, carved in ways your eyes don't want to follow too long. A staircase, impossibly wide, rises at the center. Twin curves, twin promises. You step forward. Your footfalls are almost soundless, but they still feel loud. The floor beneath you doesn't creak. It exhales. The air here is thick with varnish and old paper and something that might have once been perfume or decay. The kind of scent that clings behind the ears of time. Somewhere water drips, not consistently, just enough to remind you that the mansion breathes. A hallway opens to the left. You drift toward it, not out of curiosity, but gravity. The corridor is long, too long, in the way that dreams extend spaces. Portraits line the walls, their faces blurred by dust and shadows, eyes gouged by mildew or neglect. You don't stop to look. You're not certain they would look back anyway. The wallpaper peels in careful curls, like it's trying to remember its pattern. The carpet beneath your feet has forgotten its color. And at the end of the hall, a door waits. It opens to a sitting room, or something like it. A hearth long gone cold. Chairs that remember weight, but not names. A teacup, perfectly placed on a side table, still holding something darker than tea. The curtains are drawn, but the light that slips through their edges is amber. Not sunlight, but something older. You don't sit. The room does not ask you to. You move on, past shelves that hold books too bloated to open and clocks that tick only when you aren't listening. Upstairs the house is quieter, not in sound, but in tension, the kind of quiet that is practiced. The carpet softens your steps. The wallpaper changes, now lined with delicate vines, curling into patterns too deliberate to be random. You reach a door that shouldn't be locked but is. Behind it, you hear nothing. And that's somehow louder than anything else so far. You keep walking. A study, a lounge, a bedroom, too neat. The mansion rearranges itself behind you. You're certain of it. Corridors you passed are gone now. Mirrors that reflected nothing before now flicker with things behind you. In one of them, your face pauses before your body does. You do not stare. You blink and move on. There's a conservatory, not with glass, but with mirrors set in the ceiling, catching light from nowhere and spilling it into the ferns below. The plants are alive, but wrong. Too green, too still. You brush one with the back of your hand, and it trembles. You do not touch another. A music box plays somewhere. Not a melody, a loop. One that misses a note every time it circles back. You follow it. You have to. The path turns. The house narrows again. You descend a small set of steps into what feels like a chapel, though no symbols remain. Only pews, cracked and warped. A pulpit that has forgotten how to hold weight. And at the far end, a stained glass window depicting something that isn't quite a person and isn't quite not. Light filters through it in bruised colors. You stand beneath it and feel your skin shift. The music box has stopped. Something moves upstairs. Not footsteps, just movement. Like a thought trying to settle. You climb again. The stairs are warmer now, as if they've remembered something. The hall ahead leads to a library, vast and unkind. Books lie in piles, some open to pages that have been underlined in smears. A ladder leans drunkenly against a shelf. A lamp swings above you. No wind, just rhythm. There's a journal open on a desk. The ink has bled. The words are legible, but not kind. You skim them, not because you seek answers, but because your fingers need to touch something human. They speak of tests, of regret, of someone who vanished beneath their own curiosity. You don't know the name written at the end, but the handwriting feels familiar. Past the library, a room with no furniture. Just lines etched into the floor. Circles within circles. Symbols that look like they were meant to mean something, until someone tried too hard to remember what. You feel a pressure here, behind your teeth, like a scream reversed. You leave quickly. The door closes behind you on its own. The west wing is colder, not by degrees, but in tension. The portraits return, but now their eyes are intact and watching. The carpet is damp. You pass a bathroom, the tub still full. The mirror here is clean and reflects someone you don't quite recognize. You keep walking. Your reflection does not. And then, a door unlike the others, newer, sterile. It hisses open when you approach. Beyond it, a hallway of metal and light. The mansion peels away like skin, revealing something else beneath it. Machines hum softly. A voice over an unseen intercom recites codes in a language you almost understand. You step forward. The air smells like something recently awoken. This place is part of the house, and not. It lives below the wood and stone like a nerve. The doors are heavier here, the walls too smooth. You pass tanks filled with things that are not sleeping, papers pinned to corkboards with clips too clean. A name echoes, Marcus, but not aloud, just in your bones. At the end of this hallway, a stairwell. Downward, of course, always down. You pause at the top, your hand resting on the railing. The lights flicker, not in warning, but in rhythm. A heartbeat you've started to match, and somewhere far above, the mansion waits. Silent again, settling its walls, folding its secrets back into corners. You begin to descend, and behind you, the door breathes shut. Quiet, slow, like a house that just remembered you're inside. The door you left behind didn't quite close. Not from neglect, but from indecision. It remains ajar, like a question still unanswered, its edge resting against the frame with a hush that sounds like breath-holding. The hall ahead curves, as so many halls here do, as if to gently mislead you. Light doesn't travel cleanly here. It pools, it clings to corners, it flickers as if unsure of itself. The wallpaper, long faded, peels in curls that resemble the edges of old paper, brittle, yellowed, and slightly singed. Pages, perhaps, or memories. Trying not to be turned, there is a room to your left that waits. You don't know how you know this, but you do. In the same way you know when someone is watching you through glass. The door doesn't creak. It exhales, and so do you, without noticing. Inside, the air has not moved in a very long time. Dust sits on surfaces like memory turned visible, soft and thick enough to catch your fingerprints, though you do not touch anything. Not yet. Desks line the wall like patient wooden coffins, each one quietly hiding its own secrets. You can hear the slow tick of something not meant to tick. A clock maybe, or a machine left on, dreaming in loops. You walk past open folders, bent pens, the stain of an old mug. All of it silent testimony to someone who once believed the day would come again. It didn't. On the far end of the room, a paper flutters slightly, though there is no wind. It catches your eye the way a whisper does. Not for what it says, but for the fact that it said anything at all. You cross to it, your steps soft and slow, careful not to interrupt the silence that seems to have grown roots here. The note is handwritten, a scrawl pressed deep into the paper like the words didn't want to be forgotten. You read it. You shouldn't, but you do. The words are fractured. Something about strain samples, something about unauthorized access, and then a name, underlined twice. But you don't recognize it, or maybe you do. The name feels like it belongs somewhere behind your teeth, stuck between half-formed thoughts and forgotten dreams. You try to pin it down, but the paper has already started to crumble at the corners. Like memory, like regret. You turn. Another desk, another drawer, slightly open, like it had been interrupted. You pull it gently, and it groans with the weight of withheld truth. Inside, more notes. This one longer. Messier. Ink smudged in places, as if the words themselves resisted being remembered. A record of trials, of failure, of something breaking through containment and no longer being referred to by name. The language is clinical at first, but it unravels. Words like regret and nightmare bleed into the margins. Near the end, one line repeats, "I told them it wasn't ready." Again and again, each instance heavier, until the last gouges the page, tearing memory apart with ink and pressure. You sit back on your heels, not out of fatigue, but reverence. This was not left for you. None of this was. But it has found you anyway, like a ghost looking for somewhere to echo. A whisper that finally found ears to haunt. There's a shelf behind you filled with binders. You don't open them. You already know. Some part of you always did. These are the things people wrote when they still had time to regret, when they still believed someone might read the warnings and stop what had already begun. You are too late, and also, perhaps, too early. The binders do not remember, but the room does. You shift your gaze toward the back corner, darker, quieter still, the shadows a little deeper, as if light itself hesitated. A cabinet stands there, the glass cracked, the latch undone. You open it, and for a moment, the faintest smell of antiseptic and rust escapes. Sterile grief. Inside, more paper, more fragments, and between them, a photograph. You almost don't recognize it at first. It's old, curled, water-damaged. But the face, blurry, out of focus, feels familiar in a way that makes your stomach ache. You're not sure why. Maybe it's the eyes. Maybe it's just that they're looking away. Or maybe they once looked like yours. The photo falls back to the shelf, joining the others, one story among many. You rise again. The room feels smaller now, not tighter, just more aware of your presence, like it's watching you watch it. The walls seem to lean in, not menacing, just observant. There's a small recorder on the desk, the old kind, with physical buttons and a faint red light that glows with barely contained memory. You press play. You shouldn't. But again, you do. Static crackles first, like a sigh pulled from too deep in the throat. Then a voice. Male, uncertain, not frightened, just tired. Tired in the way only someone who's seen hope rot can be tired. He speaks of a subject, of cell degradation, of recombination failures. But his tone shifts, somewhere in the middle. He stops reading, starts speaking, more personal now. I think she knew, he says, almost to himself. I think she wanted this to happen. Not like this, but something like it. The tape cuts off, not at the end, just gone, like the rest of him. You stay still, letting the last syllables soak into the air like spilled ink. Outside the room, you hear nothing, but inside your chest, something tightens. Not fear, something smaller, lonelier. You don't know the people who wrote these words, but they knew each other. And now their stories rot beside each other, unburied. There is a wall safe behind the bookshelf. You spot the outline, a perfect square too perfect to be a flaw. You slide the shelf aside, and it resists, as if resentful to give up one more secret. The safe is unlocked. Its door opens slow, like it's reluctant. Inside, a letter. The envelope is unopened. The paper heavy, expensive. You shouldn't, but by now, that word means very little. You open it. A farewell. Not dramatic, just resigned. A goodbye to someone who didn't reply. I won't make it out, the letter says, but maybe you will. If you do, don't look for me. Just stop this. Please, no signature. Just a name in the return address, smeared. Lost to time, like everything else. You sit again, this time not out of reverence, but grief. Grief for people you never knew. Grief that didn't have time to become mourning. Grief suspended in paper and ink and air that no longer remembers the sound of voices. You stand, finally. The room doesn't ask you to stay, but it doesn't quite let you go either. As you turn back to the door, the one you left open when you came in, you notice one last paper, taped to the glass from the other side. A warning. Red ink. A simple sentence. It's not dead. And for a moment, you're not sure whether it's referring to the thing you fought or the thing you're becoming. You step back into the hall. The door sighs closed behind you, and the papers whisper in your memory, long after the ink has faded. A faint flutter. A page turning itself. The sound of something trying to be remembered. The paper-thin memory of the last door folds shut behind you with the faintest sigh. not quite closed, not quite open, as though the room itself still has something to say, but not to you. You leave it behind gently, like parting with a thought you can't hold any longer, and turn down the corridor, where the walls begin to glisten in a way they didn't before. It's not moisture, not exactly. It's more like the shine of something that's been touched too many times, something that breathes in silence, that watches without eyes. The floor beneath your boots feels wrong, subtly at first. A softness you weren't prepared for. Not plush, not welcoming. The opposite. A softness that moves with you, as if echoing the shift of your weight a half second too late. A softness that remembers what walked here before. You pause without meaning to. The air around you stills, as if listening. You glance downward and see, just at the edge of your vision, the tiniest twitch in the dark. A shimmer of slick black bodies rippling like thought. The leeches. They do not rush. They do not scatter. They do not behave like things that are surprised. Instead, they seem to lean toward you, ever so slightly, like a ripple in a pond leaning toward a fallen leaf. There is no sound but the faint, intimate squelch beneath your next step, a muffled chorus of what should not be moving. You do not run. Running would feel too loud, too disrespectful somehow. This place is not dangerous in the traditional sense. It is consecrated in something else, something older, something patient. The hallway narrows and darkens, and you step into it like sliding deeper into a memory you didn't know you had. The walls here pulse softly, not visibly, but you feel it. In your teeth, in the skin behind your ears. A throb not of pain, but presence. The lighting above flickers not from electricity, but as though something oily moves between you and the source. You can no longer tell if your breath is your own. The scent is thick, metallic, earthy, faintly sweet, like decay left to warm in the sun. And something else beneath it. Something floral. Something artificial. You reach a door. It is moist around the edges, and your hand hesitates just before the knob. The metal is sticky with something that doesn't quite wipe off. You push. The door opens slowly, reluctant and swollen like flesh. The room beyond is dark, but not empty. You know this the same way you know when you're not alone in a dream. A presence, or many. They don't move, not at first, but they're there, all of them. It's a laboratory, or it was, but the word no longer fits. Tables and glass and metal stretch across the space in sagging, rust-tinged disarray. The lights overhead are too dim and too bright at the same time, casting shadows that don't quite line up with the shapes that made them. Tanks filled with fluid, some broken, some intact, line the walls. Inside, movement. Not urgent, not hostile. Just movement. Slow curls. Coils of life that has no bones, no voice, no need for permission. The leeches here are different. Larger. Hungrier in a way that doesn't involve mouths. You feel them in your mind before you see them. A weight pressing at the base of your skull. A pressure that tastes like dirt and copper and memory. One of the tanks shudders. Something thick and long glides against the glass. It leaves a smear, not of blood, but of presence. You look away. There's a desk in the corner. A single lamp flickers above it, casting a pool of light that feels too still, too isolated, like a spotlight waiting for an actor that never arrived. Papers are scattered across it, but most are unreadable, smudged, dissolved by time or intention. But one remains, a journal entry, dated, signed, legible. They're becoming aware, it reads, not in the way we thought, not like pets or experiments, more like congregation, like a mind split into hundreds of bodies. I saw one watching me today. Just one. I think it was listening. The page ends abruptly, torn, not signed. You wonder what the last sentence would have been. You wonder how many of these notes you've read today, How many people left messages they knew no one would ever answer? How many hoped, in their last hours, to still be understood? And how many were consumed by what they created? The sound comes next. Soft, slow, but unmistakable. A wet dragging. Not fast, not near, but getting near. You move without rushing, deeper into the room, past the tanks, past the decay, past the long-forgotten attempts to classify what should never have been categorized. The dragging follows, not louder, just closer. You find another door, locked, then unlocked, not with a key, but with memory. You press against it, and it swings inward into a corridor that bends almost immediately, like the architecture itself doesn't want you to see where you're going. The walls here pulse more obviously. Dark streaks ooze along the seams between tile and metal like veins. You don't touch them, but they watch you. The floor changes again. No longer carpet, no longer tile. It's soft, but layered, as if layers of something once living have been pressed down underfoot for years. The smell changes too. More chemical now, more purposeful. As though someone once tried to sterilize this place, but gave up halfway through and left the bleach to rot into vinegar. A head, a chamber. It hums. Not loudly, but completely. A resonance that fills your teeth and softens your knees. Inside, the walls are lined with hatches. Some are sealed, some are ajar, some are empty, and some hold things that are not quite sleeping. The leeches are everywhere now, not crawling but pooled, gathering. They do not notice you, or perhaps they do, and they simply don't care. In the center of the room, a control panel, ancient, drenched in grime and fingerprints. You touch it without knowing why. The screen flickers to life with a breath like wine. Footage from another room. You recognize it. You've been there. But the footage is from before you arrived. The shadows are different. There's someone in the room. A scientist. Alone. Talking. Not to anyone present, but to something. And then, movement. The leeches rise behind him, like a wave that doesn't belong to the sea. They swallow him not quickly, not violently, but completely. When the screen goes dark, it isn't with a scream. It's with a blink, like a curtain closing. You step back. The air is heavier now, thicker. You can feel them watching, not from the shadows, but from within them. You back away, slow, deliberate, not turning your back. You don't run. You can't run. Running would be loud. And these things don't chase. They wait. You exit the chamber. The dragging sound has stopped. Or perhaps it's simply inside you now. You move through the corridor, retracing steps you barely remember taking. The lights flicker more urgently. The walls throb harder. The door you came through is ahead, barely ajar, as if the building itself exhaled just enough to let you go. You cross the threshold, and the moment you do, the sound begins again. Not loud, but complete. A slow, wet, breathing rhythm, as though the walls had lungs, as though the floor had a pulse, as though the leeches, all of them, had become a single mind again, and that mind had just noticed. You keep walking. The door swings shut behind you, gently, finally. And from the other side, you hear a single wet thump. Then silence. Only the scent remains, and it will follow you, even into sleep. The last door closed behind you, not with finality, but with a kind of slow exhale, as though the mansion, or whatever passed for one in this half-swallowed world, was learning to breathe again in your absence. Ahead, the air is cooler, not fresh, not even clean, but less suffocating than what came before. You descend slowly. Stone replaces wood, iron replaces paint, and silence replaces silence, not by growing louder or quieter, but by becoming different. The kind of silence that echoes even when you don't speak. The kind that makes you aware of the space your heartbeat takes up. Your boots, still damp from somewhere you've already forgotten, press against the stone steps in an uneven rhythm. It's the kind of descent where you forget how long you've been going down. The kind where you feel the cold long before you feel the floor. A hand slides along the banister, not for balance, not for fear of falling, just to make contact with something that doesn't recoil. And it's slick, not wet, just used. The kind of slick that lingers long after the one who left it is gone. The air changes again, and this time it hums. You can't tell from where, maybe above, maybe below. Maybe it's been in your own lungs this whole time, a song too low to sing, too old to silence. You hear it now, the voices, not melodic, not even coordinated. A sound like bodies remembering how to breathe, but forgetting how to do it alone. It's not the harmony that unsettles you. It's the togetherness. That unsteady rhythm of wet lungs groaning in accidental unison. You reach the bottom, or something like it, and step into a corridor that wasn't designed to be walked by anyone living. The walls weep with condensation, or something pretending to be it. Grime streaks the corners. Faint light from a flickering wall sconce slants like an apology across the damp floor. There are shapes here, not quite shadows. Movement that doesn't commit. You glance left, and something else glances back, though you never see it. You only feel the moment you're no longer alone. There's no scream, no sudden rush, just a door, cracked slightly, humming like a tuning fork in the back of your mind. You touch it. It opens with the reluctance of something that remembers being sealed for a reason. Inside, the floor is slick, not with water, not with blood, with life, in the loosest sense of the word. It writhes. The room is not large, but it is full, not of furniture, not of tools, but of bodies, not standing, not lying, moving, not toward you, not away, just moving, as though the very act of stillness would be a betrayal of whatever strange force animates them. They don't notice you at first, or they do, but they no longer assign meaning to you. You are not prey, not threat, just another warm shape in a cold room. They don't speak, not with mouths, but something about them makes sound, a wetness that glugs and sloshes and chokes like drowned throats remembering the hymn of lungs. They move in time with nothing, and yet together, a kind of choreography born of decay. You step forward, slowly, not out of courage, but necessity. Because behind you, the door has closed again, as gently as it did before, as deliberately. The floor beneath you pulses, just once, as though something vast and hidden below has decided to take a breath. The lights flicker, not out of malfunction but in reverence. This place is sacred in the way abandoned things often are, holy through sheer neglect. You move past a table that holds nothing, past a cot that still remembers its last occupant. The air smells like things once alive and not recently. You find papers. Of course there are papers. There are always papers. Scattered on a desk that shouldn't be here, crisp in places, curling in others. You don't read them. Not yet. But your fingers rest on the edge of one, and it's warm. Not recently touched, not freshly printed, just warm. The kind of warmth that says someone was here, maybe minutes ago. Or maybe they still are, watching from the folds in the walls. You read eventually. Not all of it, just enough. The words weren't meant for you, that much is obvious. They weren't warnings. Warnings are blunt. These are regrets, halfway between poetry and confession. You read about trials, about voices, about failures stitched into skin, about something rising or being raised. And nowhere in the margins is your name, but you feel it in the pauses between lines. The way the ink scratches suddenly, like the hand that wrote it remembered being watched. You step back. The bodies still move. Not toward you. Never that. Just moving. Because to stop would be to die again, or remember that they already had. A sound cuts through. Not loud, just different. A clang. Metal on tile. A chain shifting against something solid. You turn slowly and see that one of them has moved closer. Not aggressively, just curiously. Its head tilted slightly, like a dog trying to place a noise it doesn't recognize. You don't run. You don't even flinch. You just look. And in that look, something passes between you. Not sympathy, not fear, just mutual exhaustion. It turns away. You are not what it was reaching for. The light dims further. Your eyes adjust slowly, reluctantly. Shapes recede, but their sounds stay. That low, ceaseless murmur of bodies that once had names. And you leave, because there is nowhere to stay. You step back through the door, and it closes behind you as if it never opened. The hallway feels colder now, narrower, like the walls have decided to inch closer while you were away. You move down it, guided not by urgency but by inevitability. There are more doors, some sealed, some waiting. You don't check them all. Some doors aren't yours to open. Eventually, you find another stairwell, or maybe it finds you. There's something to the way it leans toward you in the gloom, as though it had been listening and knew you were ready. You descend again. Lower this time. The stone is colder. The walls sweat less. The light changes color. Not brighter, not darker, just different. More personal. The kind of light that doesn't care to illuminate, only to exist. At the bottom, another corridor, wider. Still lined with doors, but fewer now. Each one heavier. Each one hums like it remembers being locked. You press onward, and the air becomes still again. Not calm, just full. Of what, you can't say. It presses around you like a thick coat, muffling even your own breath. You move slower, not out of fear, out of respect. And then the humming starts again. Not mechanical, not vocal, just vibration, low and constant. You feel it more than hear it, like bones remembering music. And again, the movement, not footsteps, just the quiet shuffling of limbs that forgot why they were given form. Another room waits ahead. This one still locked. But the key, if you can call it that, is already in your pocket. You don't remember putting it there. Maybe it was always yours. Maybe it was never meant to be found. You turn it. The door unlocks with a sigh. Inside, another echo waits. But not from within. From memory. The kind of echo that feels like a place you've already been. You enter anyway. Because in a place like this, the only way out is further in. And somewhere in the dark, behind the low-throated moan of the unburied, something begins to hum in tune with your heartbeat. The hum has not stopped, though you've long since left the room where it began. It's found a place somewhere deep in your chest now. Not a sound anymore, but a pressure, low and patient, like a breath held just beneath the surface. You move through another hallway, one just slightly too narrow for comfort, though you no longer know if that feeling comes from the space or the memories caught inside it. The walls curve slightly inward, as though they've been tired of holding themselves up for years. A flicker of light moves across peeling paint, and for a moment, it feels like the building is blinking, not welcoming you, but acknowledging you, and deciding to let you pass. The floor creaks beneath your steps, but not with age. It creaks with recognition. You've walked this path before, haven't you? Or someone like you. Or maybe someone you were, not in memory, but in muscle. There's a rhythm to your movement that your thoughts haven't caught up to. Like your feet already know where you're going, even if your mind refuses to name it. You pass by a collapsed cabinet, half-rotted from moisture that doesn't seem to come from anywhere visible. Its drawers hang open like mouths in mid-sigh, empty but still breathing. Paper litters the floor, some of it blank, some of it stained, all of it curling inward as though ashamed to still exist. You don't stop to read this time. Words feel heavier now, as if each one you carry with you is one less you'll be able to say later. At the end of the hall, a door sits half shut. The kind that no longer latches properly, held in place more by habit than hardware. You push it with your fingertips. It doesn't resist, just swings open with a slow, weighted groan. The room beyond is small, smaller than it should be. Not by dimensions, but by air. It feels low, compressed, as though everything inside it is trying to shrink from something unseen, or something remembered. There's a table against the far wall, steel, long. Its surface is clean but not untouched. It gleams under the flickering ceiling light, a stark, artificial light that never quite reaches the corners. Your eyes drift lower, past the table's edge, down to the floor, and there it is, the stain. It isn't red anymore. Not really. Not the bright, jarring red you see in movies or on warning signs. It's deeper. A muddied, dried black, the color of rusted coin and old wounds. And yet, it's still wet. Not literally, but somehow, always. As though time refuses to finish with it. You crouch without meaning to, your body drawn closer like gravity has shifted around it. The air here smells wrong, not rotten, not fresh. Just familiar. That terrible kind of familiar you can't place until you dream about it days later. You hover a hand above it. Don't touch. Not because you're afraid, but because you're not sure what it would mean if it still felt warm. Your palm hovers just close enough to feel the memory radiating from it. Not heat, not cold, just presence. It was someone. You're sure of that. Not something. Not just blood. It belonged. And now it doesn't. Behind you, the door gently clicks shut. The room seals. Not with malice, but with understanding. This moment isn't meant to be shared. It isn't meant to be heard. It's a silence that demands a witness, not a chorus. You sit down, slowly, against the opposite wall. The floor here is dry, or at least dry enough. You draw your knees up, fold your arms, and let the cold press into your back. Your eyes don't leave the stain. It doesn't grow. It doesn't move. But it changes. Not in shape, but in feeling. The longer you look, the more it becomes something else. Something you almost recognize. A shape, a shadow. A memory you never asked to keep. You think of Billy. Not directly, just through him. His voice, so often silent, echoing here without speaking. There's a weight to the way he looks at these places. Not with shock, not with disgust, but with that quiet knowing that only comes from seeing too much. Maybe this stain is his. Maybe not. Maybe it's someone he tried to save, or someone who once tried to save him. The room doesn't say. It just remembers. A faint rustle comes from somewhere above. A vent, maybe, or something behind the walls. Not wind, just movement. A presence testing its shape. You don't look up. You don't need to. It's not coming for you. Not yet. It's just there, breathing differently than you do. You exhale slowly, not to steady yourself, but because the air asked you to. The room has grown warmer somehow, or maybe you've grown colder. It's hard to tell. The stain glistens just slightly, catching the flicker of the overhead bulb like it still wants to reflect something. A face, a movement, a final word that never arrived. You rise, not quickly, not because you're ready, just because it's time. You move around the table now, eyes tracing the outlines of drawers, instruments, straps left unclasped. There's no dust here, no cobwebs, just use. Repeated. Ritualistic. This was not a place of emergency. It was routine. The horror here came not from chaos, but from order. You reach the far corner and find a cabinet. Locked, but not well. The key is already in the desk. Of course it is. You use it. And the door creaks open with a sound that feels more like a breath than a hinge. Inside, vials. Small, glass. Labeled in a hand that no longer remembers its own name. You don't read the labels. You don't need to. You already know they're not for healing. Not really. Not anymore. One vial has dried around the edges, the residue clinging like a whisper. You pocket it, not for use, just to carry. Some burdens need to be felt in the weight of your steps. You turn back toward the stain. Still there, still not dry. And now, you realize something else. The room tilts slightly around it. Not physically, just perceptually. Like the stain is a small gravity of its own. A center point. Everything leans in. And somehow you have become the thing resisting orbit. You step closer. Again. Just once more. There's a smear now, just off to the side. A heel dragged, a last movement. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you feel it. Not pain, not fear, just resignation. A final shivering breath that curled upward into the ceiling tiles and got trapped there forever. A sound stirs above you. Not loud, just present. Pipes. Or maybe not. Something moving through something. Water? Rats? Thoughts? It doesn't matter. It moves. And it's moving away. You open the door. It sighs as it releases. The hallway is no brighter, but it feels easier to step into now. Like whatever you were meant to feel in that room has run its course. But the stain, it follows. Not on your boots, not on your hands, but in the way your shadow bends slightly now, even under artificial light. You don't look back, because some things shouldn't be confirmed. You pass another corridor, wider this time, and though you've seen no one, you feel watched again. The kind of gaze that doesn't demand anything, just notes you. Takes you down like an entry in a ledger no one audits anymore. You reach a set of steps, going up for once. It feels wrong, but you take them. Each step groans, not from weight, from memory. And when you reach the top, there's another hallway, this one older, drier. A new smell fills the air. Not blood, not rot, but wax. The wax of old candles long since melted. The scent of ceremonies that ended long before anyone thought to ask why they were held. You pause, not from hesitation, from acknowledgement, because down below, beneath your feet, the stain still waits, and it never dries, just lingers, just listens, just remembers, like something that refuses to be cleaned because it refuses to be forgotten. And somewhere, far behind you, but not gone, a drop falls onto stone, too thick to be water, too soft to be noticed. But you hear it, and it follows. The sound of the drop still echoes, though you've left the room behind. It echoes not in the halls, but somewhere deeper, behind the ribs, in the soft place where memory refuses to harden into fact. You move forward, not because you're called to, but because there's nothing left behind that hasn't already seen you. The air grows quieter here, not still, just quieter, like a place holding its breath out of politeness. You pass through a corridor where the lights no longer flicker. They've simply given up. And in that steadiness, there's something strangely peaceful. A room that has already witnessed too much no longer asks you to react. It just lets you observe. The door ahead opens into a chamber that feels less like a room and more like a space between rooms, like something unfinished or temporarily repurposed. Metal racks along the walls hold objects that once had meaning. Now they're just shapes with weight. A broken monitor, a jacket folded too neatly to have been left behind by accident. You don't touch anything. You've learned the cost of making things remember you. Across the room, another shape sits, not hidden, but not highlighted. He's there, and he has been, long before you arrived. Billy, not crouching, not posturing, just sitting, arms resting on his knees, shoulders neither tense nor relaxed, watching you without watching you. His presence has always carried a hush, the kind of hush you associate with closed churches or early mornings before grief has found words. You sit across from him, not for conversation, not for comfort, just to match the shape of silence. The light above buzzes gently, not in protest, but in effort, as though it too is trying to hold itself together. You glance at Billy. His face is unreadable, not hard, not soft, just present, the kind of face that doesn't ask to be understood. That's been misunderstood enough times to grow tired of clarifying. He doesn't speak, and that's what allows the truth of him to take shape. You hear it in what he doesn't say. You feel it in what he doesn't do. You think of everything they told you before. The reports, the headlines, the photographs that tried too hard to capture someone who clearly did not want to be caught. And now, here he is, not running, not explaining, just sitting in a room with you where the silence feels like a better version of understanding than any interrogation ever could. He shifts slightly, just enough for the chain around his wrist to catch the light. It no longer looks like a restraint. It just looks like history. A symbol not of guilt, but of how long someone else has had control over his story. You don't ask him about it, because you already know the answers are all in the quiet. The way he looks at old blood like a reflection. The way he carries a weapon like something borrowed. The way he walks a step behind, not out of submission, but out of some strange, unspeakable form of respect for your fragility. The room smells faintly of oil and paper, the scent of mechanical memory, where ideas were once made into experiments. There's a desk along one side, its surface littered with notes you don't read. You already know what they say. Not the words, but the pattern. Observations phrased as accusations. Language used like scalpels. The way science, when emptied of empathy, becomes something colder than malice. You glance at Billy again, and the flicker of light in his eyes suggests he's already read every word, and judged them more kindly than they deserved. He stands eventually, not with urgency, just with gravity. You follow. The hallway beyond is painted with the pale hush of sterile decay. You walk beside him now, close but not touching. There's a warmth to his presence that doesn't ask to be noticed. It just offers itself the way a campfire does. Steady, flickering, dangerous only if you misuse it. His boots make less sound than yours. His breath is even. Your steps echo louder than his because you carry more questions, even if neither of you says them aloud. You turn down a corridor you haven't used before. It's narrower than the others, more winding. A maze built not to confuse, but to delay. There are marks on the walls, scrapes, impact points, not fresh, not violent, just desperate. Like someone, or many someones, were trying to hold on to something here. Perhaps dignity, perhaps autonomy. You glance at Billy again, but his gaze stays ahead. At the end of the hall, a room waits without invitation. You both enter. It's cold here, not temperature, atmosphere. The kind of cold that feels like it's been watching for a long time. A containment room, maybe, or something that used to be. There are faint scratches in the floor where something metal once dragged. The scent is different here. Bleach over blood. As if someone tried to erase guilt and left the guilt behind anyway. Billy walks to the far wall. There's a mirror there. Not reflective anymore. Silvering peeled away, frame cracked at the base. But still, it holds enough shimmer to show shadows. He looks into it. Not at himself, but through himself. And in that gesture, something clicks in you. He's not remembering something he did. He's remembering what was done to him. Not actions, but erasures. The way they rewrote his story. The way they told it without him in the room. You move beside him, your reflection barely registering. The mirror has no interest in you, only in him. And he lets it look, lets it search, because he knows it won't find what it was told to find. The silence stretches again, but it doesn't press. It simply allows. You breathe. And somewhere beneath your ribs, the shape of your belief begins to soften. He wasn't the monster they made him. That title was a placeholder, convenient, clinical, easy to label and file away. But the man beside you is not easy. He's not safe either. But he is something better, real, and tired, and quietly kind, in a way that doesn't require proof. You leave the room together. The The hallway outside is longer now, wider, as if the space itself is acknowledging the unspoken shift. You don't walk faster, but you walk steadier. You don't talk, but something between you hums, like a thread pulled taut but not strained. He watches ahead. You glance at him again, this time not for answers, but for assurance, and he offers it without turning. Ahead, a door swings open before you reach it. Not by hand, not by wind, just ready. And beyond it, another room, filled with machinery, hums, and ghosts that linger in the whir of gears. But this time, you don't feel alone in your dread, because he's still beside you. And though he carries his own darkness, he doesn't let it outpace yours. There is comfort in that. And as the room accepts your steps, as the machinery hums its old unsung anthem, you hear the faintest sound of metal, the soft, rhythmic click of a chain around a wrist, not dragging, not tightening, just moving forward. The echo of your footsteps still lingers in the corridor behind you, stretched out like threads unraveling behind a needle. You do not look back. There is nothing behind you now that isn't already stitched into your memory. A door left ajar, a hum that never had a source, the feeling of blood dried into something older than death. The hallway ahead breathes faintly, as if the walls have lungs. You pass through them like fog passing through trees. And then you see it, the metal cage waiting, square and silent, its mouth open, its floor dustless as if someone else was just there. You step inside. The door closes with the sound of restraint, not violence, not urgency, just inevitability. A sigh of old hydraulics, then a pause that hums with age. The panel before you glows faintly. The buttons are scratched, the numbers slightly misaligned, as if touched too often by trembling hands. You press the one that sinks deepest. It does not click, but it accepts. There is no chime, only a stillness that deepens. And then the descent begins. The movement is slow, slower than it should be, as if the machinery below is not pulling you down, but letting go of you by degrees, like fingers unclenching around your spine. You do not fall. You drift. The light overhead flickers not with failure, but with hesitation, like it isn't sure you deserve to see what's below. The walls of the elevator are mirrored steel, dulled with age. You catch your own reflection, but it isn't just yours. There's something behind your shoulder that isn't there when you turn. A shimmer, a silhouette that refuses to resolve into a face. And still the elevator goes down. Time unspools here, thin and cold. You do not know how long you've been standing, only that your legs have gone numb in the kind of way that doesn't quite return. The air grows denser, not heavier, as if every floor past steals something gentle from it. The warmth, the oxygen, the memory of sun. The silence thickens. Not ominous, not heavy, just whole. The kind of silence that doesn't echo because even your breath has learned to hush. And then you feel it, not a jolt, not a stop, but a settling. Like the elevator has decided this is far enough. The doors peel open slowly, reluctantly, as though unveiling something better left buried. The corridor ahead is narrower, closer. Your shoulders nearly graze the walls. The floor is grated steel, damp beneath your boots. There are no signs, no instructions, just a light somewhere ahead, the kind that pulses instead of glows. You move toward it, not because you want to, but because the stillness behind you has begun to hum again. Each step is a soft betrayal of the quiet. There's a sound here, beneath the pipes and the trickle of distant water. A murmur. No, not quite a voice, not quite anything. But it stays with you, like the feeling of being watched by something too tired to care if you're real. You pass a door on your left. You don't open it. It doesn't ask to be opened. But something on the other side shifts slightly, like a memory rolling over in its sleep. And then he's there. Not dramatically, not suddenly. Just there, standing at the edge of a loading platform, back turned, shoulders straight. Billy. His name feels softer now, less like a warning, more like a weathered page in someone else's file. You don't call to him. He knows you're there. And you know he knows because he doesn't flinch, doesn't turn, just lets you stand behind him, both of you facing the same way, into the same slow dark. There is something about the quiet between you that feels earned. He shifts only slightly, enough for you to see the side of his face, lit by the pulse of the emergency light above. It casts shadows across him like brush strokes, the faintest sheen of sweat along his temple, the tight line of his jaw, the quiet exhaustion that clings to people who have survived things that weren't quite survivable. You don't speak, because here, words would feel like breaking glass. Behind him, a hatch opens. You didn't see anyone trigger it. Maybe it opened on its own. Maybe it was always open. The elevator below this one is waiting. Smaller, older, more honest. You both step onto it without a word. And when the gate closes, it does so with the intimacy of a hand pressed gently over your eyes. This descent is quieter, less mechanical, more personal, like a secret being whispered into a well. The air grows colder, not in temperature, but in tone, like sound is being filtered through layers of memory. Billy leans slightly, one hand on the railing. His eyes are distant, not unfocused, but tired of focusing. You realize you're holding your breath, and when you exhale, it fogs slightly in the air, the kind of fog that clings to metal and regret. When the platform stops, it does so with a sigh. Below you now is something different, not cleaner, not safer, just different. The smell is stronger, a kind of sterile rot, like chemicals used to erase mistakes that were never supposed to breathe again. The floor is concrete now, stained in a way that doesn't invite inspection. You step off the platform and feel your footfalls echo back too quickly. The ceilings here are lower, the space more intimate. You're in the belly of something that doesn't digest well. Billy walks beside you now. No urgency, no posturing, just two people walking through the belly of someone else's guilt. There are rooms down here, some open, some locked. You pass a glass tank, the inside fogged, the outside smeared with something you choose not to define. Beyond it, a surgical bay, still warm from use. Not warm in temperature, warm in atmosphere, like someone had just left, like someone might return. You pause at a door with peeling paint. There's no label, but you know it matters. You feel it in your ribs. Inside, the light is dim, flickering slightly. Not from damage, but hesitation. The walls are lined with files, many of them damp, many unreadable. A photograph sits askew on a metal desk. It's Billy, younger, uniformed, smiling in the kind of way that doesn't survive long in places like this. You don't ask. He doesn't explain. Instead, you both look at it in silence, like it's a gravestone neither of you buried. There's a console in the room, still powered, still waiting. You approach it and press a button. A screen flickers to life, casting light across your face. Words scroll, data, logs, names. Some you recognize, some you wish you didn't. You pause on a note, handwritten, scanned, dated. It mentions him, not the crimes, not the sentence, just the experiment, the dosage, the effect. And then, in a margin, a single sentence. Subject still resists. Billy doesn't move, but something in the air around him tightens. You shut the console off. There's nothing else to see here, nothing else to confirm. Only what you already knew. He wasn't the monster they made him. He wasn't anything they understood. Just a man who was left behind in someone else's war. You leave the room, and he follows, but not behind you, beside you. The corridor curves now, down into something quieter. Not safer, just quieter. There's a lift ahead, a newer one, or maybe just better preserved. You step into it together. This one doesn't shudder. It glides. It takes you further down, into the next silence. And in that silence, something flickers. Not in the lights, but in you. The kind of flicker that comes before memory. The kind that lingers even after the elevator has stopped. Even after the doors open. Even after you step out. Even after the quiet swallows you again. Even after everything else forgets your name. The descent is quieter now, but no less heavy. A silence hangs in the air like an old velvet curtain, thick with dust, fraying at the edges. You pass through it slowly, like pushing through water that doesn't want to be disturbed. Somewhere far behind you, the echo of machinery still clicks in protest, still coughs up memory from rusted corners. But it's faint now. The noise belongs to someone else's hour. Yours has become slower, stretched, aching at the joints. Every step is not just yours, but the accumulation of hours you've dragged behind you, like the train that once rattled against rails now buried under horror. This hallway is different. Not because it looks different. It doesn't. The tiles are still off-white with the suggestion of sickness. The lights above still flicker like dying stars. But the air here, the air knows something. It shivers before you touch it, recoils from your breath. There's a hum, low and trembling, like the walls themselves are trying to hold in a scream. The temperature isn't cold, but you pull your sleeves down tighter anyway, because the feeling in your skin isn't about heat. It's about proximity. It's about standing close to something that remembers too much. The doors are marked with the same indifferent signs, no names, just numbers and codes. But one of them stands slightly open, not wide, not inviting. Just ajar, like a mouth about to whisper. You do not rush. You never rush anymore. You lean gently against the door and let it swing further open, and the sound it makes, that creak, slow and injured, feels almost too human. Inside, the air shifts. It's not sterile, not anymore. It smells like old perfume and something fouler beneath, the way a funeral parlor might after a long summer. There are chairs tipped against the wall, a projector dead in the ceiling, and an empty tank in the center of the room. Glass smeared with fingerprints, inside and out. Not just a lab, then. Not just a space for study. A chamber for performance. And he was the performer. You see the space before you see him. The angles of it. The too precise alignment of notes scattered on desks. The operatic script scrawled across the whiteboards like hymns for no one. A small object sits abandoned on one of the tables. A child's music box. Lacquered and scratched, wound down but not broken. It does not play, but its presence hums, barely, like a ghost of something softer. You take a step, and the floor doesn't groan. It sighs. The silence is waiting for you to listen. So you do. And then you hear it, faint, a voice, not loud, not distinct. More like something caught in your ear after a dream, like when you wake up with a song you never knew still echoing inside your head. The melody doesn't match the air around it. It's too clean, too practiced, too full of purpose. It doesn't fit here, which is why it feels so wrong, so unforgettable. He appears before you realize you've been watching him. His presence is too still. He does not walk in. He arrives. He stands where there shouldn't be space, cast in a long coat that seems to hold him upright rather than the other way around. His hair is slicked like a photograph from a time that never truly existed. His eyes are glass marbles set in memory, blinking only when necessary. And his voice, oh, the voice. It's wrong in a way that pulls something loose inside you. Not because it's loud, because it's beautiful. He speaks as if performing, as if every word is part of an area only he can hear. You don't remember the language. You don't even remember the words. But your body reacts before your mind can catch up. Your stomach folds in on itself. Your teeth clench for no reason. You have heard him before. Not him, maybe, but his echo somewhere in the humming of this place, in the screens that blinked too long. in the documents signed too late. This man, if man is still the right word, is not speaking to you. He is singing to himself, a lullaby for the monster he has become. James Marcus, founder, architect, ghost, the man they erased, the song that survived. He doesn't come closer. He doesn't need to. His voice does all the work, curling around you, pressing against your skin, wrapping itself into the folds of your coat. It speaks of betrayal, of purpose stolen, of years forgotten underground while others danced in his lab coats, wore his smile like a borrowed mask. It is not rage that fuels him. It is memory, and memory is more dangerous than anger. Memory lingers. You want to look away, but his skin, God, his skin, it moves, not like flesh, like something else, something inside it, something just beneath the surface. It twitches when he pauses, ripples when he speaks louder. It's as though his body is remembering for him, as though every syllable he sings wakes something in the muscles he barely controls anymore. There are moments, just moments, when the movement stills, and you see him not as he is, but as he was. Younger, brighter, reflected faintly in the glass of the empty tank, just for a second. A flicker of what science stole and grief rebuilt, and then the image is gone. His hand lifts, not to threaten, but to conduct. The air follows his gesture. The lights dim in sympathy. You don't move. Not because you're paralyzed, but because you don't want to interrupt. He tells you, no, shows you what was taken. Not in images, not in screams, but in presence. In the sheer weight of being in the same room as a man who was discarded like a failed experiment. You see it in the way he carries himself, too upright for comfort, as though his spine has been rebuilt by regret. His coat flutters slightly, but there's no breeze, just movement from inside, something shifting where organs used to be. When he stops speaking, the room doesn't go quiet. It holds the sound, like an aftertaste, like something burned into the back of the throat. You exhale, but it feels like a sin to do so, as if you've been holding your breath through a sermon. You blink. He is still there, but also not. He hasn't moved, but something about him has already departed. The walls no longer hum, the lights no longer flicker, but the feeling remains, the sensation of having brushed against something sacred and wrong, like stepping barefoot on a hymn printed in blood. You want to speak, but there is nothing left to say that won't sound like blasphemy. You leave the room slowly, backward, not because you fear turning your back, but because leaving feels impolite, like ending a concert before the final bow. In the hallway, the air is somehow heavier, not with smoke, not with death, but with knowledge, the kind you didn't ask for, the kind that won't let you forget. You walk slower now, not because of fatigue, but because everything has shifted. The floor feels less like ground, more like a platform, a stage, and you're not sure if you're still the audience, or now part of the performance. Behind you, a note drifts through the corridor, soft, impossibly clear, impossibly long. A voice not human, but not inhuman either. It stretches like silk, then frays into silence, and in that silence, your own heartbeat sounds too loud, too mortal. You reach a staircase without remembering how. The railing is cold, not like metal, like memory. You grip it anyway, and descend. The echo of his song clings to your skin, your thoughts, your breath. And though he is behind you, you know he is not gone, just waiting for the final note. The echo of his voice hasn't left you. It trails behind like fog clinging to your boots, the sort that gets inside the seams and settles into the lining, so even long after you've stepped into warmth, the cold stays. It isn't loud, it doesn't repeat, but it hums somewhere deep, behind your eyes, under your skin, nestled near the place your fear once lived before exhaustion took its place. As you descend the stairs, metal rail warm from the touch of others who came before. There is no certainty that you're going deeper, only further. As if space here doesn't measure in floors, but in weight. Below, the air thickens, not with dust, not with decay, but with intent. The kind of atmosphere shaped by long years of quiet decisions and louder consequences. The light comes in fragments now, leaking from the edges of bent fluorescence, sputtering across metal panels like broken promises. It does not warm. It does not guide. It merely exists, like everything else down here, in a state of passive permission. You step forward, and the floor does not greet you. It allows you. Polished once, yes, and still faintly reflective, but only in the way water sometimes reflects the sky just before a storm. The tiles are gray, tinged with beige in corners where things once spilled and were never quite cleaned. You catch a glimpse of yourself in one, not clear, just the ghost of motion. And for a moment, you forget which direction you're facing. You keep walking anyway. The cold is still not enough. Doors pass on either side, some sealed, some gaping open like mouths that once screamed and now only wait. Behind one, there's the faint click of something mechanical. Not urgent, just tired. A printer left on without purpose, spitting paper into the void. Or maybe a fan still spinning even though the room it cools is empty of anything but regret. You do not investigate. Not because you are afraid, but because your body has learned which questions should remain unanswered. Curiosity used to be sharper. Now it is rounded and slow, dulled by long corridors and longer silences. The laboratory is not a single room. It is a web, a series of veins through which ideas once flowed, hopeful and sterile, believing themselves immune to consequence. You wander into one of its nodes, a central chamber with tables in soft disarray, beakers stained with age, and clipboards askew as if dropped mid-thought. You pass your hand over a stool, dustless, still warm, as if someone was here not long ago, or as if time bends oddly here, and the past hasn't realized it's been left behind. Screens flicker on the far wall, green text on black, looping through equations that no longer mean anything. Not to you, not to the world above. A cursor blinks like a dying heartbeat, waiting for input. But you don't type. You only look. And something in that light reminds you of watching fireflies as a child. Only these don't dance. They twitch. There's a window in this room. One-way glass. You feel it rather than see it. A flat pane of judgment pressed into the far wall. On the other side, more laboratory. Or something like it. You cannot see through, but you know it's watching. The idea of observation clings to this place like perfume worn too often. You are not alone here. You never were. But the watchers have become part of the walls, absorbed into the system, part of the hum, part of the cold that doesn't quite reach your bones. You pass into another room. This one's darker, lit by the red emergency glow that never quite goes out, even when power dies. The walls here are lined with cages, not large, not clean. Each one is open and empty, but not silent. The air inside them is different, still, but thick. It smells of fur and metal and a kind of loneliness you don't have a name for. One of the doors swings slightly as you pass, as if pushed by breath. You keep walking. In the center of the room, there's a tank, tall, cylindrical, the kind you remember from bad dreams and worse science fiction. Its contents are vague, clouded, green-tinted fluid obscuring shape. Something was once suspended there. Maybe still is. The condensation on the glass is fresh, but you do not wipe it clean. There are things you've stopped wanting to see. A note sits nearby, folded, not placed, as if dropped from a shaking hand. You don't read it, but your fingers brush it as you pass, and for a moment, your skin remembers paper cuts and pen ink, and that warm electric feeling of writing something down that was never meant to be read by anyone else. You leave it where it is. Even secrets deserve to sleep. You step through a corridor with walls of steel. Here the hum becomes sharper. The machinery is still alive, not conscious, but close. You feel it in your molars, in the soft whine that builds behind your ears when you pass certain thresholds. One door opens by itself. No password, no prompt, just recognition. It has seen you coming. Inside, the light shifts again. Blue now, clean, almost. The walls here are smooth. The floor is polished metal, slightly concave in the center. A drain. The kind of room made not for creation but for correction. You do not linger, but as you step across it, you catch the sound of something soft. A drip. Not recent. Just persistent. You don't look up or down. You leave, slowly, and the door closes behind you like a sigh. The cold should be worse by now, but it isn't. It's just there, not the kind that bites, the kind that settles into you, as if the temperature has reached a quiet agreement with your blood. It's easier now not to feel warmth, not to expect it. Every room is a new version of the same thought. This was not built for people. It was built for process. And even now, long after purpose has rotted, the process remains. In one room, a body sits, upright, silent, dressed in white. It has not moved in a long time, but it does not look like it decayed, just stopped. The clipboard in its hand is smudged with ink. You glance, and for a moment, the writing looks familiar, like your own maybe if your hands had shaken more. You do not touch the body, but you bow your head just slightly as you pass. It feels right. Another chamber opens without resistance. Here the walls are lined with tubes, hundreds, maybe more, each one sealed, each one labeled in a language that's lost meaning. Behind the glass, things sleep, or pretend to. They don't stir, they don't breathe. But the room smells like they might. A soft chemical haze lingers in the air, and your eyes water. Not from fear, from memory, from the ache of understanding something too late to change it. You move slower now, not because you are tired, though you are, but because the space demands it. The laboratory is not hostile, but it is sacred in the way that graveyards are sacred. Something here has ended, and that ending hums through the walls, through your skin, through the soles of your boots. In the last hallway, the lights flicker not from damage, but from decision, as if the place chooses when to be seen. You walk through them like strobe memories, each blink revealing a different version of the path. One stained, one clean, one full of footsteps that vanish as quickly as they appear. At the end, a panel waits. A terminal. Screen cracked, but alive. You touch it, and for a moment, it shows your face, not clearly. Just a silhouette. A ghost framed in green. Then the screen turns off. It does not shut down. It simply chooses not to reflect anymore. You lean against the wall. Not for rest, just to listen. The hum is quieter here. The cold, no worse than before. But in this moment you realize it was never enough. The laboratory was never cold enough. Not to freeze the guilt. Not to kill the song. Not to stop the dreaming. You close your eyes, and the silence settles around you like frost. And somewhere, in a chamber you did not pass, something stirs. Softly, like a thought that doesn't know it's waking. A gentle hiss. A light blinking once. Then stillness again. And then nothing but the smell of ethanol and sleep. The silence follows you out of the laboratory like something left unfinished. Not trailing exactly. More like clinging. A static in your clothes. A weight in your throat. The cold no longer surprises you. It has become part of your movement. A layer beneath your skin. Humming with every shallow breath. The halls behind you no longer whisper. They wait. Patient and unblinking. Everything that could be said has already echoed once through metal and tile. What remains are your footsteps. The wet, uneven ones. The ones that sound softer now, because your legs carry more than they did before. You carry too much now. Not weapons, not files, not even the names of the things that happened in the rooms you passed. You carry knowing what was done, what it became, what could not be undone. It's not heavy in a physical way. It's heavier than that. It creaks inside your ribs. It sags behind your eyes. It curls your fingers without your permission. The facility changes again. Less laboratory now. Less ambition carved in white and steel. The walls bleed back into industrial tones. Bronze piping, rust-flecked joints, the exposed underbelly of some machine that forgot its original purpose. It's warmer here, but not in comfort. The heat feels accidental, a byproduct, a warning. Something beneath your feet is too active, too loud. It rumbles like breath behind iron lungs, irregular and distressed. There is something in the floor that doesn't want to be here anymore. The lights shift too. They don't just flicker, they stagger, they reel. Shadows stretch too long, curling like fingers under the doors you pass. You try not to look too closely, but your eyes betray you. One door creaks open as you pass. Just a sliver, just enough. A broken gurney inside, straps dangling, a smear on the floor shaped like a dragged apology. The smell is older than the stain. You pass a furnace room, or maybe it used to be. Maybe it still is. Hard to tell. The grate on the floor glows faintly. Not orange, not red. Just a suggestion of color, a ghost of heat behind black iron teeth. The air in here is thick enough to taste. Copper, ash, old leather, scorched regret. Your lungs hesitate, but your feet do not. Billy walks ahead, not far, but never beside, always just ahead. His silhouette cuts cleanly through the hazy glow, sharp edges in the fog of rot and rust. He doesn't speak, but his silence isn't empty. It hums like your own. A different pitch, perhaps, but in harmony. He carries the same weight. Maybe more. You do not compare. There's no point in weighing guilt like currency. No one wins that exchange. The corridor curves downward, just enough to notice. Just enough to make your ankles ache more than they already did. At the bottom, a door sighs open, heavy, deliberate, the kind that was built to keep things in or out. You've stopped asking which. It doesn't matter anymore. Inside is the heart of the facility. Not in a metaphorical way. In a very real, very hot, very dangerous way. You feel it before you see it. A pulse through the soles of your boots. A vibration that ticks against your bones. The walls here are lined with machinery that hums in a different language. One of pressure, containment, combustion. It's a room designed for endings. And it knows. The centerpiece is unmistakable. A core, a generator, a reactor. The name doesn't matter. What matters is the sound. A low, constant growl, like something alive trying not to scream. Its panels are cracked. Its seals strained. Pipes rattle at odd intervals, like breath caught in the throat of a dying man. You approach slowly, not out of fear, but reverence. This place deserves a slow goodbye. You check the controls, not because you understand them, you don't, but because ritual matters. Your fingers skim the dials, the toggles, the switches with missing labels. You recognize just enough to know what happens next. The heat has made everything soft. The edges of metal smear when touched. Sweat rolls down your spine, slow as syrup. You think for a moment about water, and how far away it feels. Billy steps beside you now, not in front, not behind, just there. His hand reaches for the console, then stops. He looks at you, not for permission, not for guidance, just to confirm that this is real, that this is the choice. You nod, barely. That's all it takes. The lever clicks. The sound that follows isn't an alarm. Not quite. It's more like a groan. Old machinery waking up after years of unnatural sleep. Lights swell, gauges spin. Steam begins to hiss from unseen joints. The heat rises like a curtain, slow and theatrical. The room breathes deeper. more alive than before, and also more doomed. You back away step by step as the systems awaken to their own destruction. There's something heartbreakingly beautiful about it. Watching the place that held so much wrong prepare to end itself. You almost expect it to scream, but it doesn't. It hums, like it always has, just louder now. A farewell lullaby sung in the key of collapse. On the way out, the walls feel closer, not physically, spiritually, like they're leaning in, not to trap you, to watch you go, to bear witness to the one thing this place never expected, mercy. Because fire is not always violence. Sometimes it is absolution. You hear the first metal groan as you reach the hallway. Somewhere behind, something begins to buckle. The fire is coming. It has not yet arrived. But it knows the way. You do not run. There's no need. You walk, slow and steady, through the corridors now bleeding with heat. Flames have not touched them yet, but they will. You feel it, like summer wind just before the forest changes color, like breath right before the cough. You pass a terminal on your way out. Its screen is still active, flickering through logs, old experiments, names of the forgotten, fragments of reports that no longer matter. One catches your eye, a name, not yours, but one you carried, one that carried you. You let it fade without reading. There is no justice here, only endings. The fire catches the far corridor just as you reach the last stairwell. It doesn't roar, not yet. It curls, soft at first, tender, like a ribbon of warmth remembering how to dance. The flames move differently here, not hungry, not wild, purposeful, as if they know they were invited. Outside the facility, the air changes, not cooler, but freer. The smoke follows, thick but slow, dragging pieces of what once was into the sky. You step back from the hatch, from the metal door that still hums faintly, even as the temperature inside climbs. You feel it behind your knees, the heat pushing through seams, through cracks, through the bones of the building itself. Billy stands beside you again. He doesn't speak. Neither do you. The moment doesn't need language, only breath, only silence. Only the distant flicker of orange light now rising in the seams of the trees. You smell burning rubber, metal, plastic, memory. You think of all the things you could have done differently, and then you let them go. The fire takes them for you. And somewhere in that orange bloom, in the heat that washes against your back like the sea returning home, you feel something break. Not a bone, not a machine, a silence. The long silence you've been carrying since the train. It splits, gently, and the weight is lighter. Not gone, never gone, but carried now by the flames. They do not scream, they sing, and the sky listens, quietly, until the last whisper of steel unfastens in the distance, and the fire becomes the only sound that matters. The last echo of flame still dances behind your eyes, though the room is long gone. You do not remember walking away from it, only that at some point your feet were moving, and then they didn't stop. The scent of scorched oil and wet stone still clings to your skin. It is the kind of smell that never quite fades, even beneath clean water and newer grief. And the silence around you now, it's not peaceful. It's hollow, like something important was pulled from this world, and nothing came to fill the space it left. You walk past the remnants of something meant to be permanent, steel that was meant to hold secrets, glass that was supposed to contain futures, now all warped and buckled under the weight of ambition and time. You don't look back, not because you are brave, but because looking back is a kind of indulgence. And right now, there is no energy left for indulgence. Billy walks beside you, but not near enough to share warmth. Not that there's much warmth left in either of you. You hear the gravel beneath your boots, the crunch of it muted by ash still hanging in the air. The world smells tired, Not just burned, but finished. As if it had tried everything and finally decided to be quiet. You remember the elevator, the way it groaned beneath you like a body too long buried. The descent was not steep, but it felt final, like a closing breath. You both said nothing on the way down. There was nothing left to say. Even the hum of machinery felt reluctant, as though it too would rather rest. By the time the doors opened, the decision had already been made. You were leaving. But the part of you that had arrived here, that version of you didn't survive the descent. You think of Marcus sometimes, not as a man, not even as a villain, but as a wound that never closed properly. He stood like a ghost, trying too hard to remember how to be human. And perhaps that's what he was, someone's memory, animated by the wrong kind of love. A voice that no longer matched the face it wore. A song that kept playing even after the party was over. You think of that song now, not the melody, the ache beneath it, the longing buried inside every note. You can still feel it, faint as an old bruise. The hallways grew quieter the deeper you went. Not because the danger was gone, but because even the monsters had tired of pretending to be alive. You moved past broken lab equipment, past scribbled notes that no longer mattered, past containers that still pulsed with the echo of science too bold for its own good. The cold in those chambers was never enough. It wasn't made to preserve, it was made to isolate, to punish. You don't feel cold anymore, but that's not the same as being warm. There was a moment, small, insignificant, when you picked up a note. Not because you needed it. You knew enough by then. But your fingers touched the paper anyway, and for a breath, you felt the person who wrote it. Their panic, their handwriting slanting with speed, the ink smudged by something that might have been sweat, or blood, or both. You don't remember what it said, only that it tried very hard to matter, and maybe it did, maybe just for that one breath. Billy said something once. You don't remember the words exactly, just the rhythm of them, the way his voice dropped, low and flat, like he was holding something down so it wouldn't climb up his throat. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't even ask to be understood. He only asked that you let him keep walking. And you did. Because sometimes the only thing a person needs is someone not to stop them. The sun is rising now. Slowly, reluctantly, as if the sky too is unsure whether it's ready to begin again. The light cuts through the trees ahead, gold softened by mist, like it's trying not to be too loud. You step into it, not because it's beautiful, but because it's there, because it's what comes next. Billy pauses. The edge of the woods greets him like a question. His shadow stretches long behind him, then disappears beneath the trees. He turns once, looks at you, says nothing. He doesn't have to. You nod, and it feels like letting go of a weight you didn't know you were carrying. Not because he's innocent. Maybe he isn't. Maybe no one is. But he carries it now. That's enough. The ground beneath you is still damp, still soft from what was. You breathe in the morning and it tastes like new air wearing old regrets. There's a part of you that wants to lie down, to rest beside the wreckage and let it swallow you whole. But there's another part, smaller, quieter, that remembers the mansion just ahead. The next place, the next breath, the next memory not yet made. You don't smile, you don't cry, you don't feel heroic, you just walk. Because walking is what remains when there is no more story to tell. Only the sensation of having survived one. The trees sway above you, gentle and indifferent. Somewhere behind them, birds begin to stir, not singing, just rustling. Like they too are unsure what to make of this new light. And somewhere inside your chest, a quiet flicker answers back. A slow step forward, a fading scent of ash, and the soft sound of footsteps becoming part of the forest floor. The forest does not end so much as it recedes. It lingers behind you with its wet roots and silent branches, reluctant to release the shape of your shadow. You don't step out of it. You rise from it, like something unearthed. The soil still clings to your boots, soft with the memory of things buried too deep to name. The air shifts, less humid now, less wild. There's a stiffness to it, a kind of geometry that doesn't belong to nature. You recognize it before you see it. That subtle wrongness, that feeling of angles watching you. There are no birds here, no insects, not even wind. Just the slow, deliberate hush of a place holding its breath. And then you see it, rising through the trees like a memory you never wanted to recall. Stone and shadow, tower and rot. The mansion, it's not the same one, not exactly, but it might as well be. The architecture speaks in the same language, ornate and oppressive, beautiful in a way that hurts to look at for too long. You pause without meaning to. Your muscles don't ask permission. The sight of it stops something inside you. You remember the train, the facility, the flames, the weight of everything you didn't want to survive. And now, here it is again. Another beginning that knows how it ends. You walk because there is no choice left. The ground is gravel, but it crunches like bone. Each step is a sound you'd rather not hear again. The gates yawn open, not recently, but recently enough. Someone came this way before you, or something. You wonder which would be worse. The path is too clean. No leaves, no vines. Nature avoids this place like it knows better. The hedges are trimmed but not lovingly, as if shaped by hands that forgot what joy was. You pass statues along the way. Human forms almost beautiful if not for the expressions. Their mouths caught somewhere between warning and grief. They do not watch you, but they do not rest. The front doors rise up like a dare. Twin slabs of polished wood, carved with stories you don't want translated. There's a knocker, but you don't touch it. You're not here to be invited. You're here because whatever drew you through the forest has not yet finished with you. And deep down, you already understand. This house is not just ahead. It is inside you now. The hinges sigh as you push the door open. Not loud, not creaking, just tired. The kind of sigh that knows what you've come to see. The foyer stretches before you like a memory too symmetrical to be real. A chandelier hangs overhead, its crystals dulled with the weight of decades. Light filters through them in fractured threads, brushing the marble floor like fingers that never land. The silence here has layers. You can feel them. The surface quiet is polite, waiting. Beneath that, another stillness, deeper, older, full of things that remember your name even though you've never spoken it here. You step forward, and your reflection follows you across the marble, elongated and uneasy. You try not to look down. Too much of yourself is still wrapped in what came before. The grand staircase rises before you. Not elegant, not even welcoming, just present. A spine of wood and carpet, vertebrae worn soft by those who came before and never made it back down. You don't climb it yet. You explore instead, because that's what you do. Because not knowing is worse than fear, and wandering is the only way left to hold on to your own shape. The side corridors twist in on themselves like questions without punctuation. Every hallway feels like it remembers someone else's footsteps. The portraits watch through varnished eyes, all of them too noble, too poised, too still. You pass them like old regrets. Some rooms are locked, some are open. Some have already forgotten what they were meant to be. There's a sitting room with a broken clock. Its hands move backward, softly, like an apology no one asked for. There's a faint hum in the walls, too regular to be electrical, too soft to be alive. You stop beside a table with dust arranged in a perfect square where something once sat. You wonder if removing it made the house notice you. Outside the windows, the forest waits. Still. Watching. It does not whisper. It does not call, but it knows. There are books in the study, leather-bound, spine-cracked. One opens too easily, as if it's been waiting for your fingers. You do not understand the words, but you understand the feeling that something has been left here to grow, not mold, not age, something more persistent, like intention. You close the book gently, but the feeling remains. The kitchen has no warmth, only metal and tile and a single chair turned slightly away from the table, like someone rose in a hurry and never returned. The floor is clean, too clean. Even time feels scrubbed out of this place. You open a drawer and find nothing, not emptiness, nothing, as though the house was edited in your absence. You think of Billy again, but faintly, like seeing someone else's dream from a distance. The woods swallowed him gently without question. You wonder if he found peace, or if peace is just another kind of forgetting. You climb the stairs, slowly. Each one takes more from your legs than it gives back. At the landing, a painting greets you. It is too large for its frame, too dark for its colors. You don't recognize the scene, but it recognizes you. You feel that in your teeth. The upper hallway breathes differently. The air is warmer, but not kind, like breath on your neck from someone standing just behind you, never moving. There are more doors here, all closed, some locked, some not. You open them like secrets, expecting nothing and still being disappointed. One room contains only a mirror, tall and cracked, angled so your reflection is always just out of reach. You stand before it anyway, and for a moment, you think the version of you in the glass is breathing slower than you are. You touch the doorknob to the final room, and it's warm, not recently touched, just old, familiar. The room beyond is not dramatic, not sacred, just quiet. A desk, a chair, a map pinned with faded ink, a single light bulb swaying above it, unpowered, moving from some draft you never feel. You sit, not because you should, but because the chair does not resist you, and in this house, that feels like permission. The desk drawer opens with a nudge. Inside, a key, not to a door, to something else, something you'll find later, or already have. The house does not creak. It does not groan. It only waits, like a stage before the play resumes. You stand again, and your knees argue with you in the language of long days. You listen. You always listen. You return to the foyer. The chandelier above you no longer reflects light, only shadows. The doors are still open, and yet you know you won't walk through them. Not yet. Not today. There is more here. Not answers, but remnants. Dust that remembers. Hallways that repeat. A breath waiting to be taken. You step forward again. Into the house. Into yourself. And far above, in a room you haven't reached yet, something shifts just slightly. Not a threat. Not a scream. Just a sound. Like an old heartbeat, remembering how to echo. Like the low hum of a train, still vibrating behind your ribs. Like the scent of old iron, faint in the air again. As if chapter 1 never ended, only circled